How are we doing? We ready yet? Oh, no, don't worry about that. Do we have the ability to go live?
Yes, Madam Chair, just a moment.
Emily, what time are we supposed to be done? 4? Okay.
Madam Chair, we're live.
All right, thank you. At 1:08, I am calling to order our second week of budget hearings. And if we could get a roll call, please.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Councillor Cassett.
Here.
Councillor Faulkner.
Here.
Councillor Lee Garcia.
Here.
Councillor Lindell. Madam Chair,
I'm here.
you have a quorum.
All right. Do we have a changes to this afternoon's agenda?
Madam Chair, no changes from staff.
Okay.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor, aye. Anybody opposed? That motion passes. Chair's opening remarks. We are into our second week. We do have, we have 2 departments today with a lot of subgroups within them. So we'll try to keep things moving along so we can get everybody in. We do have until 4 o'clock. I know we do have counselors who have other obligations, so we're gonna try to keep things clipping along. So with that, we will start with the Community Development Department, and I believe we are, well, I'll let Director Brown, Rich Brown, take it from there and take it in whatever order you're planning on doing.
Madam Chair, members of the Finance Committee, good afternoon. I'm just going to make a brief opening statement and before we get into department budgets, but my full community development leadership team is here today to take you through the highlights of the FY23 budget templates and answer any outstanding questions you may have. As you may know, the CDD's mission is to foster a high quality of life through integration of initiatives, programs, and regulations, and also to promote the city's community and economic development through innovation, upward mobility, and looking at the key determinants of health, including affordable housing and housing affordability. We've had an incredible past fiscal year. I was able to hire 3 key positions, Director and Deputy Director of Arts and Culture, and the Director of the Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency. And these are all important roles that round out the mission that I just explained. Some of the key important milestones that came with that were the execution of the E&A of the film studios and the Visual Arts Center, the completion of a 5-year consolidated strategic housing plan, the completing testing of the third-party plan, which we just announced by press release, very exciting, maintain a record-setting occupancy and rates in hotels and short-term rentals, which generated more than 17 million in lodgers tax collections. And we're awarded $100,000 in the Creative Industries grant for an industry that we're trying to promote and grow. And we created a number of ecosystems in the ED department, and I think Director Nelson will speak to that. And lastly, we appointed a new poet laureate and city historian, both with deep personal professional ties to Santa Fe. Each of my department heads will give you more detail about their final budget worksheets. But some of the goals that we have set within this include, but are limited to, activating a $4 million advertising campaign that strengthens our voice in the regional market. I just attended an advertising strategy meeting with Director Randall. It was very, very productive. Deploy more ARPA dollars for small business technical assistance, which Director Nelson will speak to. Increasing our culture investment funding in order to support more Santa Fe arts and cultural organizations, which Director Johnson will speak to. Creating an MRA commission and commencing with an MRA tax increment finance plan, which we'll bring to you via Director Iverson. Execute development agreements with the Aspect Studio on our Garson production studio. Move forward with our general plan update and implement the plan, including a hiring of a strategic long-range planner. And then lastly, completing phase 1 and phase 2 of our land development code update. As you can see, that's a lot of activity. My team is ready to put it into play, and I'm very excited about that. They'll give you a lot more specificity, but I wanted to just give you a glimpse of what we have going on here with the Community Development Department. Lastly, as I approach my 65th birthday, I have made a decision to achieve my goal upon moving to Santa Fe and I've announced to the city manager my retirement from the city effective June 30th. I have time to go before this all happens, I'm very proud of the leadership team, both the upside and down the line, and I'm proud of the work we've done, and I've been incredibly grateful to be a part of the team of the city of Santa Fe for the past 6.5 years. Thank you very much. I'm here for questions, but I want to turn it over first to Director Alexandra Ladd with the Office of Affordable Housing. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Director Ladd.
Thank you, Chair Romero-Worth, members of the committee. I am here today to talk to you about my affordable housing budget, which is really a critical piece of the city's effectiveness in the community to support the needs of the folks who can't otherwise afford housing. Our mission with affordable housing is that we work with everybody. We are partners in the public sector, the nonprofit sector, and with the private development community to increase opportunities for Santa Fe residents to afford housing, from the person experiencing homelessness all the way up to the homeowner. And that's a really important concept in this work, is that like a chain, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So we focus on all aspects of housing affordability in the work that we do. My office has a four-legged stool, if you will, where we are implementing regulation. The Affordable Housing Code is Chapter 26 in the municipal code. And this contains our inclusionary zoning requirements and our Affordable Housing Trust Fund and our fair housing. We are investors in affordable housing across the community, which also includes some administrative work for our funders, notably the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We also have a policy research strategic planning function, where we try to embody as many promising practices in the community that we can. And then, of course, we talk to the community. We have a community engagement function that includes referral to the entities and agencies that provide services. We do not provide direct services or any type of housing units to the community, but we have lots of friends out there who do. All right, next slide. So I mentioned that we serve the needs from the homeless to the homeowner. This is called a continuum of housing needs. This is a graphic that I ripped off the internet from someone else's website, but I thought it was good because it's pretty simple, and it shows that it shows the relationship of different kinds of housing interventions. And I like the circular shape because it's not a linear progression. Many people who have owned houses may become homeless, and or folks who own houses may decide they don't want to own houses anymore and become renters. So it's really more of an ecosystem rather than a linear. I think the other really important point is, in order to serve the continuum of needs, because the interventions look very, very different when you are helping someone who's unhoused versus somebody who's trying to buy a home. New construction is not the only path forward. It's an important and very obvious piece of the solution, but we can also make existing homes affordable, both through financial recapitalization and rehabilitation, but also just to help the individual afford their housing, their current housing. I think the notion of housing stability drives a lot of this work. And we are additionally operating within a market. So supply and demand forces are very important. We try to work with momentum and not against it, but we're looking at how do we increase supply, but we also want to increase the capacity to afford housing or to provide housing. Our accomplishments, next slide, sorry. Our accomplishments And we share these accomplishments because obviously, like I said, we're not providing these services directly or building the homes ourselves here at the city. But because of our leverage requirements with our housing funds, so that I think this is also an important point, we require any recipient or housing provider to bring their own resources to the table as well, or bring resources from other entities to the table so that we know that our investments are leveraged to an impact that they wouldn't be if left on their own. And this is also important because we're not seed funding. We're not supporting pie in the sky dreams. We are closing gaps for viable projects where there's capacity to succeed. But in the last year, these numbers are rounded because it's always, I had a planning professor who said it's better to be generally right than exactly wrong. So when I do presentations, I use round numbers. But we improved approximately 50 homes through energy efficiency upgrades, emergency repairs, and general rehab. This included single family homes as well as apartment homes. We helped 30 folks transitioning out of a chronic homelessness situation through rental assistance, hand in hand with supportive services. We also helped 300 renters to stabilize their housing situations and either maintain their housing or get into more affordable, more stable housing. We had 800 households in our community complete homebuyer training and financial counseling to become either buyer ready or to get on a budgeting plan to help them pay down debt and improve credit scores so that they could become candidates for home ownership someday. 60 households were supported directly through mortgage assistance funded by the city. Approximately 60 price restricted homes were built and sold to income qualified home buyers, with an additional 30 homes built by for-profit developers. We finally completed our donation of the lot on Alto Street to Habitat for Humanity, where 5 homes will be constructed. The groundbreaking is this coming Saturday. What's really exciting about this project is that it's this intersection of a historic district that's walkable, that's and these homes will be zero energy, very, very highly efficient homes and affordable. So this is going to be a very exciting project, small but mighty. Next slide, please. So major goals for our upcoming year, as always, to continue our housing investments so that they are as efficient and productive as possible, and working closely with our community partners to do that work. We will continue, of course, to apply our inclusionary zoning requirements, and exciting news in the upcoming year is that we have 3 market rate rental projects that are going to talking to me about trying the set aside units in their projects. So that's great. Taken a while to get there. And then we're hoping that we are getting ready to both initiate some of our planned community development either in Midtown or Tierra Contenta, as well as mobilizing some city-owned resources to follow a similar trajectory as the Alto Street lot, which is through the donation of the land to greatly underwrite the cost of affordable housing production. And that is everything for my presentation, and I would stand for questions, and I'm excited to share another year of this work with all of you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I'm going to take a prerogative as chair and just ask 2 quick questions because I think there's some misinformation circulating, and I want to just clear it up right out of the gate. Your budget, we have not decreased the amount of funding for the Affordable Housing Office. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, that is correct. Of course, my expertise in this world is on the end user side. So I would defer any technical questions to my colleagues in finance, but I think what's difficult, or it's difficult for me, when I look at these budget documents and it's comparing the mid-year budget with the base budget, it looks like a huge reduction. But that's kind of less of an apples to apples as a apples to apples with some strawberries thrown in that the mid-year budget reflects money that's moved into our budget. And for the last few years, we've had CARES Act move in, we've had capital outlay funds, we've had ARPA funds, as well as our annual CDBG grant. So that mid-year budget number looks huge, and then it looks like we have a significant reduction. But if you look at the FY 24 year base budget, we're a little bit above that. So I think, I don't remember the exact number.
Right, so if we could just get the expertise of our budget officer, Mr. Hopkins, on this. I think it's an important question. And there's some confusion. So, and I think there's actually an increase in the amount of money being budgeted for the Affordable Housing Office. So maybe you could help us understand what all that, how all that works.
Yeah, Madam Chair, when you compare the original budget for FY 24 to this budget, which is the original budget for FY 25, the budget went from 5.4 million in FY 24 to 6 million in FY 25. So the total original budget for affordable housing had an increase of a little over 600,000 or 11.2%.
Okay, and can you wait, I'm not seeing, so that number is not in our budget book, correct? Well, the proposed budget is 6 million, but the actuals for, maybe just repeat what you just said.
Madam Chair, the budget, the number I'm comparing it to is from the FY 24 budget book. So it is not in this book.
Okay, so give me that, give that number one more time.
That number is 5.4 million.
Okay, and budgeting in this proposed 24-25 budget is a little over 6 million.
Madam Chair, that's correct.
And so, and you're saying that's an 11.2% increase in the funding from the budget that we approved last year at this time.
Correct.
And can you talk a little bit about why in the budget book, you all start with the mid-year budget and not the budget as it was passed a year ago?
Madam Chair, we are thinking of doing maybe some style revisions to include both the original budget and the mid-year budget. One of the reasons we include the mid-year budget, however, it's kind of there are pluses and minuses to doing that. One of the reasons we do include it is because we want to include any changes in the ongoing operations that have happened between, because a lot can happen in 6 months of a fiscal year. So you might have a new position, or you might have this new pilot project that we started that would be ongoing and stuff. But so we want to include that, and we don't want to give council an unfair or I guess a minimized version of what the actual budget was, because when we've talked about doing that in the past, we've been asked, well, why didn't you include this? Why didn't you include that? That's all in the current budget. But the drawback is that doing it as a mid-year budget does include a lot of things that are not ongoing recurring funds that are not normally part of the budget. So one-time expenses, just overall in the city, we had nearly $13 million worth of one-time expenses that were added to the budget from GRT allocations in the first 6 months of the year, including some for affordable housing, I believe. As well, when you're talking about affordable housing, you're also including things like the CDBG from the budget from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which their timing, because of the federal fiscal year, which turns over in October, their timing is a little bit different than our budget timing. So we don't necessarily have a final number on CDBG, for example, until well after the budget is adopted on our end. And so that has to be done via a bar that is taken to council later on to add that. But those are just kind of two examples of, you know, plus we have like things like ARPA grants, which are still going forward. We are still spending those down. Those we tend to do those as carry forward. We don't necessarily want to add them to the original budget where we can avoid it, just because we don't know exactly how much will be available to carry forward until we get to the end of the fiscal year. So rather than guess at it and just having to fix it, we generally tell them to wait until, under most circumstances, tell them to wait until the first quarter so they know what to carry forward. But that's, you know, especially in a case like affordable housing where you have a lot of grants, a lot of one time, a lot of carry forward, it can tend to distort the picture.
Okay, and in the budget book, there's a percent change of about 39%, almost $4 million. What does that number represent? And a decrease, which is, I think, where some of the confusion is coming.
Madam Chair, that reflects that one-time funding that is not included in the FY25 budget, but was included in the mid-year FY24 budget.
Okay, so mostly reflects one-time spending that was spent in this current fiscal year, or is going to be spent in this current fiscal year, isn't a recurring expense into the next.
Madam Chair, some of it may well bleed over into the next fiscal year, but it is not recurring per se. It just may take a little bit longer than June 30th before it can all be spent.
Okay, okay. And then one other question, we are putting in the next fiscal year, $3 million into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Madam Chair, that's correct.
Okay, and yeah, all right. I'll leave some more nuanced questions for later. Let me go to the committee. Questions from the committee? Councilor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Ladd, for being here, and to your team, and really for all your work. We know that affordable housing is one of the key issues in the city, so there's always a lot of focus on everything that you're doing. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity to really express my gratitude to this really small but mighty team that works incredibly hard on such a crucial and complex issue. So thank you, really. A couple things that I really just wanted a bit more detail on. I'm glad Councilor Merriworth asked about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and that there will be $3 million in the next fiscal year that will go into that. I do see the $4.6 million for affordable housing initiatives and programs. Can you break that down? What is that 4.6 million going to precisely?
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, these are the funds that we anticipate getting through our community development block grant. So we have made some, worked with our Community Development Commission to come up with some funding recommendations. Some of those projects are public facilities, some of them are public services, and some mortgage assistance for home buyers earning less than 80% of area median income. That number also represents more of the funding recommendations that came from the Community Development Commission for our local funds, including mortgage assistance, tax credit development, rental assistance, helping folks maintain housing, and some facility repairs as well. And also we have some administrative contracts. So for our homeownership agencies that are providing services to the community, we have a fee for services contracts with them.
Thank you. I appreciate that. A couple, so one question that I didn't have before, but you mentioned that you have 3 market rate rentals that are looking at doing the set-asides. Do you have any insight on what was different about these projects that is making this more possible? I know this has been something that we've had such a lot of conversation around. And how do we improve our inclusionary zoning? What are the things that we need to do to make sure that we actually are getting more of these actual affordable units set aside in these projects? Do you have any insight on why this is potentially going to be a success, how that might inform some of the work that we do both financially and policy-wise over the next year?
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett, it's one of them specifically is because they hired a property manager person who had direct experience working at tax credit projects. So the thought of income certifications, working with assisted tenants did not scare her off. One of the projects has been talking about doing this for a long time. And that really came out of a lot of conversations with me, and with their agent, who really was supportive of the thought. And then the third one is still a little pie in the sky, so we'll see how that shakes out. But I think the issue is that affordable housing is affordable to live in. It is not affordable to build, and it's definitely not any more affordable to operate than market rate housing. So when the rents are restricted, you're starting out of the gate with a gap. And I think that's where if we want to increase the number of projects that do the set-asides, we did make it a lot simpler, because at first it was very complicated and had all these different income ranges, and that's not something a market rate developer knows how to do or own and operate. But I really think that there's a capacity issue there, and I think, like we do on the homeownership side, where we pair the market rate developers with nonprofits who can provide a lot of technical assistance and also provide the mortgage-ready home buyers. We're going to be looking at how do we replicate some of that on the rental side.
Interesting. Thank you. I mean, thank you for that work, because I know, again, that this has been a big point of conversation. How do we improve this? So happy to hear that there are some case studies that we can really learn from. A couple other projects I was curious about. Obviously, we've heard a lot about Midtown, Hopewell Man. I've gotten a lot of questions about Tierra Contenta recently. I don't know if you can speak to this or if anybody else in the room might be able to speak to this, but I did see it listed here of supporting this project, how we actually get this moving forward quickly. I know a lot of people are waiting for TC to come online, and that it is a crucial piece of providing affordable housing in our community. So any more information you have on how we are going to really be moving this forward this year would be wonderful.
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett, there is a development team under contract, and they've been working on the updated design guidelines and the master plan amendment to accommodate phase 3 development, which is going to look a little different than standard subdivision development, in that we're trying to bring back a model of mixed housing types, and sort of going back to the way we used to develop housing, where there would be single family homes and a duplex and maybe even a small apartment building on the corner. Just trying to kind of create more variety within the market, so that entry-level housing maybe won't have to be as subsidized if you can have an option to buy a smaller home that's more affordably priced. So that's in the works right now. I believe that the final version, I think the drawings are at 60 or 70% complete. The final amendments are projected to be submitted for the city's approval in June, by the end of June.
Okay, and that's a master plan amendment, so it'll come to us, correct?
That's a really good question. I'm wondering if the director of land use.
Let's say Director
It's
Clues.
a process issue for sure.
I believe it does. So, looking forward to seeing that. Just check my notes. You actually were able to go over a lot of the things that I had wanted more information on. So I think that will be it for me for the moment. So thank you again so much.
Other questions from the committee? Counselor Paulson.
Alexandra, could you give me an update on the trash cleanup from where the homes camp was? Like get a lot of calls about that.
Madam Chair, Counselor Faulkner, I just want to note this has nothing to do with my budget. So this is not a city expense. This is not a city process. But I know that the nonprofit corporation has hired a cleanup crew, and the really egregious area is either they've finished cleaning it or they're almost finished, and then they'll begin on the second area.
Counselor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair. My question isn't really a budget question, but, so in the last year or two, what's been the great challenge of communicating what we do at affordable housing? What's been the steep slope that we've had to climb in the community to allow people to know what we do and what we don't do, or the greatest issue or controversy, or what is it that's taken your time that you've had to spend a lot of time explaining to the community how this works?
Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, that is an excellent question. There's probably not an easy answer. I think we have made huge improvements in how we communicate about accomplishments. We've created graphics that are easy to read. I think probably this work in general tends to be technical. When you start, I mean, just the word subsidy sounds boring. So I think I have certainly individually struggled a little bit with that. How do you convey really complicated concepts and use words that people care about, as opposed to the words that are the terms of art that are used in the industry? I think the hardest communication piece for me is to help people understand that even affordable housing is part of a market. Just because you want to do something nice and help people doesn't mean rainbows and unicorns show up and there are no constraints. So we have to make the market work while also providing a community benefit. And I think that there's a lot of feeling that any market rate developer is somehow greedy and evil and just out to line their pockets. And maybe that's true of some of them, but I think in general, I've had very positive interactions with the private market, and most importantly, helping the private and the nonprofit market work together and support each other.
I think you gave a excellent, succinct answer to what was a complicated question. We still deal in our own marketplace, don't we? And it's not an easy marketplace, and it's probably not going to be an easy marketplace in my lifetime. But I think what the city and the Office of Affordable Housing does is continue to make progress. And I think that the communication in the last year has been excellent. I think that people have a much deeper understanding of how hard it really is, how hard it is for our neighbors, how hard it is with builders, financial institutions, the goals that we have. I think that it's terrific that we've put 800 people through a program to become buyer ready. You know, that's a really big deal. I also think maybe one thing that you didn't mention, because perhaps you didn't want to mention, is the incessant explanation of why we've needed to have a fee and lieu. And you've explained it many times, many different groups. And I think you've done a terrific job with it. It's complicated. It's not easy for people. You know, we wish it weren't that way, but it is. That's the marketplace that we live in. And I really very much appreciate that, you know, the vocabulary in getting out front with this is much different than the vocabulary that you do for hundreds and hundreds of pages for HUD applications. Those are weary. So really kudos. I think that the budget is what the budget is, and we work within it, and we make great accomplishment every year. And I'm very appreciative to you.
Thank you, Counselor Lindell. And I would be remiss if I didn't call out my excellent team who is pushing the paper and processing the processes and just never gives up. And some of them are here today, but the unsung heroes are not as well. So kudos to all of them and my fearless leader here.
Counselor Lee Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I kind of just wanted to point out some things, and again, I think that anybody who is looking at the actual numbers, and I think this may go to Mr. Hopkins, but so I've got the three proposed budget books in front of me. So I've got 23, 24, and 25. And so, you know, pointing out the 5.4 million, which would have been last year's recommended. This year we're at 6 million. And recommended for 23, we were at 4.9. So that shows increasing. We are funding this department more and more. Whereas in the budget, and I don't know if you can explain this, maybe clarify it for me. In the budgets, it shows as a decrease of 40%. Last year it was a decrease of 66%. And the previous year, 36%. And so, although we've increased the amount, I don't know if you can shed some light on that for me, to understand a little better.
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, this goes back to the conversation we had at the beginning of the presentation. The reason that it's showing a decrease then is because the comparator is not to the original budget from year to year. It's the original budget to the current year's mid-year budget, which includes a lot of one-time and things like CDBG and other things that are carried forward. So therefore the original budget and the mid-year budget are not the same. The mid-year budget has grown by quite a bit over the course of the year. And so what looks like a decrease is really an apples to oranges comparison. If that's one reason why we mentioned that, you know, what you were doing was really looking more of an apples to apples comparison, comparing the original budget to original budget, because that shows really the commitment of new funding to the initiatives of the various departments, including affordable housing. Whereas one way to look at it, the mid-year budget includes, you know, non-city funding like grants, and it includes carry forward of old funding that has not been spent yet, but that has, under the way the Constitution and state law directs, we have an annual budget process. Any budget spent in the current year has to be appropriated in that year. And if a remaining amount is left because the contract got delayed or the purchase got delayed or whatever it may be, we do have the ability to carry that forward from year to year. So when you carry that forward into the mid-year budget, that increases the base you're comparing against. So what was an increase then when the original budget becomes the mid-year budget grows like this, that increase becomes a decrease, but it's really, not a change to this budget, it's a change to the base.
Thank you for that explanation, because again, you're looking at numbers and if you don't understand the way the ebb and flow of during the budget, what happens when you're bringing in money, whether it be grant money or in this case, I guess, last few years, it's been ARPA funds that have come in, and how we're responsible with expending those and utilizing them. So I guess that clarifies my question there. I did have, I guess this question would be for Director Ladd, and just paint us a quick picture of what happens if affordable housing fee in lieu of goes away. What does that do to this department?
Madam Chair, Counselor Garcia, it would affect our revenue, because we do have some funds that are not general fund that we have a couple different revenue sources for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and one of them is fees paid by developers. I think the bigger question, and I'm not an economist, is what would that do to the overall real estate development market? Because we know in all my conversations with market rate developers, it's really hard to get financing if you're showing any, and in fact, it's almost impossible, even on an affordable subsidized project, they almost can't carry any debt in order to be able to generate enough income to operate themselves. But for a market rate project, which has to carry debt and doesn't have the benefit of any subsidy to offset that, the restrictions on revenue really affect, because the financing is provided based on if you can show that you're gonna make enough money to pay back your debt. So it's not based on the construction costs, it's on the operating costs. And so if my understanding from many conversations with both banks and developers is the bank wants to make sure you're making enough money every month that you can absorb higher than expected vacancy. Perhaps there's a water leak that means a few apartments have to be empty or repaired, et cetera, those unexpected things. So they want to know that you're making enough profit that you can absorb any kind of short-term loss. But if you're showing right out of the gate that the rent revenue on a certain number of your units is not only not going to provide that profit margin, but is also going to cost money out of your pocket to operate, your bank is saying, no, thanks. I don't know that you can pay me back if something else happens.
So obviously, I guess my original question was, how does that affect your department? And I know that your answer came back at how it affects our overall economy. And I guess what I see and what I envision is that if that goes away, then obviously we're less attractive to build rental units, because in lieu of basically it was only for rental units. In order for anybody to opt out of providing affordable housing units, correct?
Madam Chair, Counselor Garcia, I'm not sure I totally understand your question.
So again, one of the big, I think, misconceptions with people in the community when they ask, well, why are we getting so many apartments? And the answer is well, many developers are building apartments to provide housing, which are rental units. And the reason that they are building is because they're market rate, it's market rate housing. And so if they opt to provide the affordable units, it's less attractive to them. So again, I guess I'm just leading down the pathway of how do we explain to the community the reason why, and the decision would be made, would be, well, if we don't want more apartments, then the fee in lieu of, I think, is the one way that you can pull that back, and slow it down. And so again, how does that affect the economy of our city? And I think that's really important to look at. And so it's a very tricky fine line, because do we want more development? Do we want more housing units? Or do we want to find a way that we can also have some affordability that's built into that for people? I heard what you said, is that not everybody wants to buy a house. But not everybody can afford to rent through an apartment, especially at the rates that they're going at now. And so again, how do we make it to where finding the balance? And so, that was my main question. Do we anticipate what, granted that the 3% excise tax for future purposes, if that does come to fruition, how that does affect your department for future budgets?
Madam Chair, Counselor Garcia, thank you for clarifying your question. I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the great complexity between how can we use market momentum to benefit our community and to lead to the kind of development that serves the housing needs that are here. And we know the housing needs are across all income ranges. We know we're at a deficit right now, even if we just look, and we haven't had a lot of growth between our censuses, but if you look at the growth we have had, we haven't had that same growth in the number of housing units. So we know that there aren't enough homes in the community. And then when you layer on the ability of people to pay for those homes and the challenge of subsidizing the cost of those homes to make them more affordable, it's very complicated. And I think you've summed it up really well. It's this balancing act, and we just figure it out as we go along as well. I think I can't speak to the effect of the excise tax yet, because we don't really know what that's going to look like. And it's the same reason why I can't really answer your question. If there wasn't a fee in lieu, what would our revenues look like? Because we have no way of predicting that, because it is a market activity. So some years the revenues might be 400,000, and some years they might be 1.2 million. And it just depends on what's happening and when it's happening. So it's a very difficult number to pin down.
And back again to our budget, and I think that's what we're here today to discuss and to talk about, to make a point that we are actually putting in more money. So I think those are the majority, those are my main questions. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Faulkner.
Just a follow-up question to Councilor Garcia's line of questioning. How dependent is affordable housing, like your department, on fee in lieu of for operating? Is there a relationship at all? Is it used to mostly subsidize? I think the public has a hard time understanding it because it's super complex. So some of these questions are designed to kind of help shed some light on why fee in lieu of is there and how it impacts your department.
Madam Chair, Counselor Faulkner, any revenues earned from in lieu fees go into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The use of that fund, the uses for that fund are defined under state law. They cannot be used for administrative operating costs, for salaries, for services. It's only for the capital costs of housing. Whether that's financial assistance to an individual or subsidy to build a project, that's very, very specific. So the operations of my department as part of the city are funded through the general fund.
Thank you. And thank you for everything you do, Alexandra. You do great.
Thank you.
Counselor Cassidy.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Counselor Faulkner. That was what I wanted to make sure was very clear, is that any dollars that we are collecting from fee and lieu are going into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And as you already said it perfectly around what can actually be utilized with that. Quick note, there's a typo in the budget book on page 24. It says achieved citizens approval for the 2% housing exit. We're going to 3%. So I want to make sure that that's corrected for anybody that is viewing that from the public. And then I had one additional question I forgot to ask. I saw there was one vacant position. What is that position? And can you tell us a little bit more about what that does for the capacity of your department?
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett, that is a senior planner position. And the primary role for that position is to help with the implementation or to lead the implementation of the inclusionary zoning program. And to also provide support on some of the other planning initiatives that our entire department's involved with. So Midtown and Chair Contenta and the bigger picture planning stuff.
Okay, and that's not a new position from this fiscal year, did we?
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett, it is not. It is a job I've been doing on
Thank you.
top of my other job for 5 years now.
All right, well, hopefully we can get that filled and take one of your 15 hats off your head. I'm sure that that would be helpful. So thank you so much.
Okay, we've spent an hour on this one budget. As I said, we have quite a few to go through, but this is obviously an important budget and an important priority for the city. So I'm not sorry that we took the time that we did, but I think we do need to move on. And again, thank you to you and your staff and to all the work you do and for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move a little more expeditiously through some of these others, even though they are also important, and I know they're gonna generate more conversation. So where do you want to go next? Director
Madam
Brown?
Chair, I'd like to ask Director Chelsea Johnson from the Arts and Culture Department to come up next.
Hello, Madam Chair. Hello, counselors. Thank you for having us.
Welcome.
Right. So next slide, please. All right, so I come to you from the Arts and Culture Department. Next slide. We provide leadership by and for the city to support arts and cultural affairs. We create and fund programs, cultivate connections, and recommend policies that promote and sustain the arts and our creative economy. Centering inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, we connect residents and visitors alike to the vibrant arts and cultures of Santa Fe. Next slide, please. So our major accomplishments in the past fiscal year, we rebuilt our department from the ground up. When I came on in September, Erminia Tapia was the sole employee of the Arts and Culture Department, running it entirely on her very capable shoulders. She transitioned out 6 weeks in. So since then, we have rebuilt to a staff of 5, entirely new. And I would like to just highlight the incredible capacity the arts and culture staff have demonstrated. We have people with expertise in museum studies, in planning, in procurement, in music, in visual arts, in literature, in academia, in gallery management. It's a really remarkable team, in city government as well. So we have reopened and activated the community gallery as a vibrant and inclusive space, and that includes relaunching exhibits. We had our Artworks exhibit that highlighted the artwork of Santa Fe youth recently. We've also been hosting events in the gallery, something we hope to continue to expand, including a welcome gathering with the Poet Laureate, a party that celebrated Black History Month featuring music and catering and visual art and a very diverse and intergenerational audience. And coming up, we have a free poetry workshop with the Poet Laureate this Sunday. And onward, we have much programming planned for the summer and beyond. We established an art program for the new terminal at the airport, working with the Santa Fe Gallery Association, putting beautiful contemporary art by working Santa Fe artists, sponsored by currently operating Santa Fe galleries, and that has proven to be a resounding success. Just yesterday, we found out that an incoming passenger fell in love with the piece on the wall and purchased it. And we hope to keep that going as well, so that the airport is not only a beautiful space, but one that supports and showcases Santa Fe's artists and art culture. And we have also been integral in the Midtown Neighborhood Development Project in planning, along with, in collaboration with many other city departments and agencies, and in stewarding and inventorying the many arts assets on campus to make sure that they are being responsibly assessed, cared for, and accounted for, and that they will be responsibly and fruitfully distributed among our city partners and put to use by Santa Fe's youth and other community partners. All right, next slide. So our major goals for the coming year, and we have many, we're very excited about the possibilities here. We want to continue to grow and strengthen our cultural investment funding, which is the largest proportion of our budget. And that's our funding that goes directly to Santa Fe's nonprofit arts organizations, from very tiny neighborhood-based groups to large famous organizations such as the Opera and the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. We want to continue to be able to fund even more organizations and to offer even more funding to help support their promotion and their efforts so that they are reaching both residents and visitors alike. We want to continue to expand sponsorships of local arts organizations and events, again, that reach out to every community in Santa Fe, every neighborhood, as well as bringing in visitors and tourists. We want to continue to develop our creative placemaking capabilities, and that includes our work at Midtown. We're planning community engagement events out there so that the neighborhood feels alive, that there's community investment in it, that Midtown is a place people continue to be excited about and feel connected to. We're going to continue working with the Santa Fe Airport to put in even more art, both permanent collection pieces and rotating through the quarterly exhibits with the Gallery Association, as well as outdoor public artworks that we've collaborated with the state to put in place. And we'd like to also continue to collaborate with other departments within the city, such as Public Works. We're talking about putting poetry on the buses by Santa Fe poets, maybe also collaborating with Santa Fe artists to do art pieces that also go onto the buses, so everybody riding through Santa Fe has the opportunity to experience art. We would also like to reinstate a program of bringing local artists to decorate or to paint public utility boxes. We want to bring more murals to other parts of the city just to continue to increase the vibrant arts culture throughout all parts of the city, from the airport to the center of town. And we also want to develop our Art is the Solution funding for Santa Fe artists. And this is a relatively new program that the Arts Commission came up with 2 years ago. And so in its first 2 years, it's been a really successful initiative that helps provide funding to local artists for initiatives that speak to issues directly affecting Santa Feans and provide a community engagement component as well at the end so that the public can also enjoy and engage with these and spark conversation. And the idea is that art can be, if not the sole solution, a significant solution in addressing challenges around environment, inequity, social issues of our time, as well as simply beautiful and restorative and joyful for people to experience. We want to continue to diversify and accelerate our programming in the community gallery. Among the initiatives we're discussing is next year is the 20th anniversary of Santa Fe being named the first UNESCO Creative City in the United States. So we've been meeting with a number of constituencies about how we can really highlight and elevate that. A series of gallery events focusing on Santa Fe's folk art and craft designation is one of those things top of mind for that. We want to continue to host events that bring in people from all over the city, as well as visitors, tied to Heritage Months, tied to art, tied to music, literature, all of the arts. And finally, our art in public places portfolio, we want to continue to maintain the artworks that are out there that need a little bit of refreshing in TLC. We want to expand our public art offerings throughout the city. And we want to also innovate and start thinking creatively about other ways that we can distribute art throughout our city. So yeah, in short, we have a lot of optimism. We see a tremendous amount of potential for growth for arts and culture in this city. We believe that arts and culture should and can touch the lives, every part of people's lives in Santa Fe, from infrastructure to the built environment, to their neighborhoods, to going to a performance or an exhibit. So, and we are hoping to continue to celebrate, sustain, and grow arts and culture here. Next slide. And that's it. Thank you. Ready for any questions you may have.
Great, and I'm gonna ask the committee members, let's limit it to 5 minutes each so that we can get through all the budgets we have today. Questions from the Councilor Cassett?
Thank you so much, and very wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Couple quick questions. One, the dollars that we have allocated for the last couple of years for the district arts and culture projects, are those in the budget for FY25 as well?
They are. We are continuing the $10,000 per district. And we also, by the way, want to get those rolling immediately with FY
Yeah, that's
25.
given what we're discussing in District 4, that sounds like
Exactly.
a great idea to
So
me.
there's
So,
a better opportunity for you to.
yeah, see you in
get it
July
Yes.
immediately. The other thing I just wanted to mention, I know that we've discussed this before, is looking at the grant funding processes, is, you know, conversations that I've had with some of the arts community around performing arts and youth programming, and making sure that we are looking at how those, you know, are part of the whole inclusive art community in Santa Fe. I know sometimes there has been less focus on performing arts. I know Ms. Tapia, before she left the department, had done a lot of work there that I heard from the community was well received. So really just want to put in that plug to make sure that we are continuing that work in supporting the performing arts, as well as the youth performing arts, which can be just such an incredible outlet. I know I'm a little biased. I was a dancer growing up. It was a huge part of my life, but also, you know, kept me on track. So really want to make sure that we continue to provide those opportunities for the youth in our community. And with that, I will yield the floor. Very speedy.
1 minute, 22 seconds. Other council. Don't need it. All right. All right, I'm gonna put in one plug that I would love to see us do, and I'd love to work with you on this. I'm so happy that we're doing art at the airport. When I was first elected, I had the opportunity to go to Cape Town, South Africa, because my daughter was studying there. And when we landed in the airport, of course, that was in the middle of one of the kind of constant drought that they were experiencing. And they had student art around water conservation, and making that sort of the first message that visitors saw, you know, the importance of saving water, that you've just landed in a desert. We're happy to have you, but, you know, please be mindful of your water use. And I would love to see that. I think it was a great way to engage kids, and just also sort of set the tone for a fun visit. So anyway, I'd love to see us do that. Every director that's come in front of us, I think I've talked about it. We haven't been in a place where we could do it, but now that we're doing art at the airport, I think it's a great thing to do. Yes, Councilor Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I should have asked this, but before we move on, under other operating costs, that's close to $1 million. Can you kind of give us a little bit of what's included with that, please?
Madam Chair, may we ask Councilor Garcia, may we ask Mr. Hopkins to come up and speak to that?
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, in the case of arts and culture, there are several items in there. The largest share of that is advertising in the amount of $731,204. There is also $138,341 for services of other departments. That's for internal services like fleet, IT, HR, and payroll. The arts and culture's share of that. There's also $40,000 in sponsorship expenses. I believe that goes to local artists. $5,750 for professional dues. $2,250 for printing and publishing expenses, and $500 for postage and mail services.
Thank you. What was the number again for advertising?
Madam Chair, Counselor Garcia, it's $731,204.
Oh, what type of advertising are we doing here?
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, by advertising, that is the category in which our cultural investment funding has been placed. So that is all of the grants to nonprofit arts organizations to use toward promotion and marketing. So approximately 44 to 50 organizations.
Okay, thank you. That's a pretty big chunk of the overall budget. And just kind of wanted to know where that's going to. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and councilors.
Madam Chair, I'd like to bring up Director Johanna Nelson to first speak of economic development, and she will follow with Director Iverson to talk about the MRA.
Terrific. Welcome.
Great. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Everybody. Joanna Nelson, Director of Economic Development. Thanks for your time. Next slide, please. Okay, great. So our mission at the Office of Economic Development is really about how do we support and create conditions in Santa Fe to build up the economy and provide equitable economic opportunity for our residents. And that's a lot of work. We do a lot, and so hopefully we can share with you some of what we've accomplished in the past 12 years, as well as what we're looking to accomplish this next 12 months. Next slide, please. We've had a really busy past 12 months, and I'm completing about 16 months at the helm of the Office of Economic Development. It's an honor to work with Director Brown. I'm appreciative of his leadership. Unemployment is down in Santa Fe, and it continues to go down. We're about 2.7%, according to Department of Workforce Solutions. And gross receipt taxes are also going up. So we've had some good numbers economically over the past couple of months and are really optimistic looking forward. So in the past, in this current fiscal year, we have focused a lot on organization, foundational development for our office, ecosystem building, which in order for us to do our work, it's really incumbent upon us to develop relationships with our organizations, as well as listen to our communities, listen to our business owners. We got a number of grants. We were awarded about $100,000 from the state to support the creative industries. We were awarded a Conference of Mayors grant to support access to childcare in Santa Fe, which is a workforce and economic barrier. We were awarded participation in the National League of Cities Workforce Academy that has allowed us to really get support and guidance on developing our workforce development strategies. We've also created a number of ecosystem convenings where we are bringing together our many different organizations in Santa Fe that are focused on supporting economic development. So our coffee and collabs, our workforce convenings. We also have deployed a successful program in partnership with Santa Fe Public Schools through the Work-Based Learning Initiative to support over 100 high school interns per program that they have. We've increased communications with our business community, creating 2 new newsletters, one focused on workforce and one more general. And we've also created some programming for our entrepreneurs, one called Santa Fe Open for Business, where we highlight new entrepreneurs, new businesses every month to share their story with our community. As well, we've created Santa Fe Business 101, where we provide information to help entrepreneurs navigate how to start a business in Santa Fe. and we'll go to the next slide, that hopefully gives you a snapshot of what are we looking to achieve in the upcoming fiscal year. So we are laser focused on deploying our ARPA funding. And if you recall, our three buckets that we're really focused on, developing workforce is one, Wi-Fi accessibility and broadband infrastructure is another, and business technical assistance is that third bucket that we are hitting the ground running, working with finance, working with procurement and legal to make sure we are able to encumber the money in this calendar year. And it's going to be extremely exciting to see some of our pilot programming getting out to our business community focused on how do we strengthen our local businesses. We also are in the process of developing a contract with the University of New Mexico to support the development of a Center for Responsible Business. This has been an ongoing project. We are deploying opportunities for a comprehensive economic development plan for the city, as well as a workforce development strategic plan. And we also are developing, further developing our industry communications networks with our key industries so we can get information out to our key industries like outdoor recreation, bioscience, the hospitality industry, et cetera. And I'll share one last kind of encapsulating goal statement where we've got about 8 priorities that really guide what our work is. And so one of those is equitable economic mobility, business support, strategic development, workforce development, ecosystem building, Wi-Fi accessibility and broadband, and strategic asset development. And thank you so much again for your time, and I'd love to open it up for questions.
Do you want to do the MRA thing first, or you want to do it second round?
Chair, we could do questions here and then MRA because
Okay. Questions from the committee? Councilor Lindell.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Could you just speak very briefly?
Counselor, can I get you to speak into your mic?
Sure. Can you just speak very briefly to the partnership with the public schools and the coding program? Meg Fisher.
Madam Chair, Counselor, members of the committee, would love to. Meg Fisher and the work that she's doing with her programming to support coding has been a fantastic opportunity for the city. And so we actually worked with her recently to apply for grant funding to even build her program out. And what she does, for folks that don't know, or she works with different organizations as well as schools to provide coding opportunities and training for youth.
Thank you very much. I think it's really important. And I just wanted to give it a little plug.
Thank you.
Counselor Cassett.
I'll be very brief. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to make sure to recognize the economic development team. Obviously, I spent a lot of time with you all through EDAC, and I am just constantly impressed with your creativity and passion and enthusiasm. Both, I work mostly with you, Director Nelson and Casey Balbour, but the entire team, whenever they show up to the table or to work on projects, I just am incredibly grateful. We have some really wonderful minds that are heading up OED. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Counselor Lee Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really quick, if you can elaborate a little bit more on the workforce development and strategic action plans that you have.
Counselor, Madam Counselor and Madam Councilwoman, Chair, Madam Chair, and Counselor, members of the committee. I will get that right, I promise. Thank you so much for the question. We're really excited to have been awarded participation in the National League of Cities Workforce Development Academy. And so what that has allowed us to do is connect with a cohort, which was competitive to get there, working with 14 other cities across the country, working with Department of Labor, the Women's Bureau to get a plan and a strategy together for our office that gets us ready to look at all of these federal opportunities that are coming through to fund things like Meg Fisher's Coding Academy, fund things like the Santa Fe Public School work-based learning. And we had kind of a hodgepodge, you know, a varied attempt at how we were addressing workforce development. And so working with NLC, being able to get a strategic action plan in place, being able to analyze our data is going to help us have a strategic action plan that we've even heard from groups like Somos Un Pueblo Unido, that they're looking for the city to provide some guidance around actions that they can get in alignment and so we can work together.
The reason I ask is, you know, but he has a hard time hiring people, and it's the government, it's in private, and, you know, the type of individuals who come and apply at businesses, many times they don't have the skill sets to even fill out an application properly. And I think that's, you know, where do we start with the basics? And so just interested to kind of see where we're headed with that. 'Cause, you know, there's levels for everything, and I think entry level, and helping people develop a skill set of certain areas where they want to be. Obviously, not everyone's gonna go to college, and I think that's where the direction a lot of times is how do you get people into the trades where they can actually work with their hands and do things of that nature. So just kind of wanted some elaboration on that, and I appreciate the answer. No further questions, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
All right, I just have one quick question on your major goals, develop ED strategic action plan. Can you speak to that a little bit? Is that the update of the plan from that was last done in the 90s? Am I right about that? What did we call? I forgot. It had a famous name.
The Angelou Plan from
The Angelou plan.
2009.
There we go.
Which was updated from 2004. But Madam Chair, members of the committee, you're exactly right. So we have had a variety of phases of plans that have come from that comprehensive effort that concluded in around 2009. And thanks to the work that Director Brown had put into motion, we are ready to go to have an updated comprehensive economic development plan that's informed by collecting new data, updated data, looking at key industries that are creating real economic impact. This is also playing in part with the state's economic development plan that was launched 2 years ago, as well as DWS is putting out a new plan as well. So there's opportunity to really align efforts.
And what's the timing on that? Is it a strategic plan for a particular number of years? I mean, this one's quite old, isn't it?
Exactly. So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, we're requesting that we look immediately, so 3 to 5 years as well as 10 years out.
Okay.
And Director Brown reminded me too that we also have the North Central Economic Development District. So there's a number of key players that we're in regular communication with and have the opportunity to collaborate with.
And so that plan, you've been laying the groundwork to start to pull it together. What's the timing?
Madam Chair, members of the council, thank you so much for that question. I think it's taken me a good couple of months to learn the process here at the local government regarding procurement, RFP, working within the regulations of ARPA, et cetera. And so we're launching the RFQ to put out that call for the first phase of the plan, which will be focused on collecting data and doing the data analysis.
And I imagine it'll have a community engagement component at some point. It doesn't sound like in the first phase, but.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, you're exactly right. So in addition to primary, secondary data collection, we'll also be engaging with industry leaders, community partners to collect that feedback, as well as the great work that our partners have already done, so we can build off of the data that they've collected. And then when we roll out phase 2, which I'm hopeful will be at the end of summer, that's when we can really kick up the community engagement piece as well.
Okay. And there's funding in your budget now for this work.
Madam Chair, members of the council, correct.
Great. There's so many things we could talk about. We don't have time, sadly. So we're gonna have to move on down the, yes, Mayor.
I appreciate your time squeeze. I just wanted to layer on one other point or area of emphasis. First of all, I want to point out that our community development team, economic development team, and our community health and safety department work together. And I think it's significant that social policy and economic policy are two sides of the same coin. It may have been President Clinton or another president who said the best social policy is a good job. And I think the fact that both economic development, community development, and our community health and safety team collaborate to attack the issue that Councilor Lee Garcia brought up, which is youth employment, youth job readiness, is a sign that we really see those pieces as collaborating. I also wanted to just, it isn't on the major goals, but I will tell you that for me at least, one of our ongoing major goals, maybe it's too obvious to even state, is to launch a full-on effort to reduce and hopefully someday eliminate poverty in Santa Fe. I think so much of what happens in northern New Mexico and in New Mexico in general, when it comes to issues of opportunity, achievement, a good quality of life, relates to people trying to get out of poverty. And so a brief list of some of the things that our city government does to address poverty directly and indirectly includes the Mayors for Guaranteed Income program, cash transfer program, eviction prevention assistance, nonprofit assistance, partnering on the South Side and others to do outreach to small businesses that are trying to get started and grow. Early childhood job development program. Childcare, as Councilor Cassidy has mentioned over and over again, it's social policy, but it's economic policy. And we have to do more to provide more early childcare. Home-based providers is a part of that childcare program. The work-based learning program that Councilor Lindell talked about with the Santa Fe Public Schools, that's a national model for taking young people and actually giving them income while they intern and learn about what it's like to be in the workforce. Care coordination and navigation program, community violence prevention, youth violence prevention, veteran navigation and scholarship program. I know we have a serious issue of seniors living in poverty, and we have to address that directly. In the list already in front of you is the public Wi-Fi program that Mr. Brown has really personally taken a direct interest in and going out and talking to folks who are living in trailer park developments and making sure they're accorded the opportunity to have Wi-Fi free and available. Afghan Women Refugee Work-Based Learning Project. YouthWorks is a huge partner with the city, perhaps our largest partner in doing workforce development training and giving kids a constructive path toward a job and over time a career. And of course, we do a lot of stuff with senior services and recreation to give both seniors and young people opportunities to have a successful experience that the city underwrites, so that regardless of your economic situation, you have access to those city programs and assets. I think at the end of the day, the unwritten overarching goal is to create a city where nobody's left behind and where those who are struggling to get out of poverty, intergenerational poverty frequently, find partners with the city and with our partners, including the different state, county entities, regional entities, and nonprofits like SCORE and many others that really are focused on the same set of underlying systemic issues that hold back too many people in Santa Fe from having a shot at living up to their full potential. So I really salute not just economic development, but the partnership between community development and community health and safety as a tremendous step in the right direction for everybody in Santa Fe. And it's largely due to the outstanding people who work in both of those departments that we're making some progress. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, nobody's waving at me. We're going to move on. Thank you so much for your presentation and all the work you're doing. Director Brown, are you going to?
I'm sure we're ready for Director Iverson, Metropolitan. I think her slides are up, so she can start.
Great. Great. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have it written down, as I normally do.
I answer to most things. Hey, you works.
The inaugural mission of the Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency is really to focus on the implementation of the vision that you all adopted for the Midtown Master Plan and Community Plan. And this is the inaugural budget for the Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency. We are included within the economic development budget, which is quite common. I believe when I left the city of Albuquerque, we were included in the finance budget. So it's typical to be sort of an orphan that gets tucked into various departments. To that note, I just kind of want to spell out for you that the budget for the Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency within the economic development budget is about $570,000, of which half is payroll for Mr. Logston and myself, and the other half is for contractual services. In terms of, I know there was a lot of kind of discussion amongst this committee about who does what and whatever yesterday. So just at a high level, it is me, myself and Mr. Logston, as reflected in this budget. The contractor to which I have get the pleasure of standing on his great shoulders, his role is going to be, has been sort of downsized to more of a strategic advisor role. So he's the day-to-day project management and negotiation with developers is a role that I will be taking on. Next slide, please. So the major accomplishments for the redevelopment agency is number one, onboarding myself. And really, I think what's reflected in that onboarding process was, you know, the presentation to you all that we gave a few weeks ago of, we now have a plan. We have a plan of, I've sort of gotten my arms around the project, got the team orientated, and we have a plan for how we're going to spend this first tranche of money, what we can accomplish, and what the first phase of redevelopment will look like at Midtown. We also have anchored the site with a couple of key partners and are negotiating development agreements with them and secured them as players that we can work with while we're doing the infrastructure. So I think that it will work out very beautifully that we can use some of the existing infrastructure to bring in these initial tenants. And then, you know, the other thing as well is during all of this, we have been able to use the site to economic gain. You know, we had a great year this past year in bringing in revenue and leasing and licensing the site to various film entities. Next slide, please. So our goals going forward are, one, we're going to execute a development agreement with Aspect Studios. I'm very optimistic that we're going to bring that to you this summer. That project will have a significant economic impact, significant community benefit impact. It will hit on many of the goals in the community development plan. We're going to continue to partner with Public Works as they roll out the implementation of the infrastructure side of this project. And really key to all of this will be formally designating the site and the surrounding area as a redevelopment area and getting a tax increment finance plan put together that we can put forward to the state and start collecting a reoccurring funding source for the project. We're also going to be focusing with our partners in cultural, arts and culture is the activation of the site and locating a few areas, putting in some basic infrastructure improvements to have community events and really enliven the site while we're doing this infrastructure. And then finally, we're going to be starting to work with the Hopewell Man neighborhood and putting together a neighborhood stabilization plan. And with that, I'll sit for any questions.
Not stand. Okay. Questions from the committee? Counselor Lindell.
Thank you, Chairwoman Romero Worth.
I don't know why I tripped on the L in your name.
That's okay. This is a hard budget to know because it's in, why isn't it separated out from, economic development?
Madam Chair, Council Lindell, I'd actually like to have Director Hopkins speak to it specifically, but it's almost a division within economic development, originally was, but he can speak to that. I think it has a lot to do with Munis and having different separate orgs, but he can give you a little bit more specificity to it. But
Madam Chair, I'm afraid we were dealing with a logistical issue. I did not hear the question.
It's hard for me to ask about this budget because I don't know what the budget is. It's just lumped into economic development, so I don't have any way of knowing to ask any questions.
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, that was the way that Economic Development suggested that it would be set up. It was, we did specifically ask if they wanted to make it a division of Economic Development. For whatever reason, the decision was made not to do that. So it is essentially lumped in with the rest of Economic Development's budget.
It is an inaugural budget, so there's nothing to compare it to in terms of spending from last fiscal year to this. I think we did hear the total dollar amount, and there are two categories of expenditures. If I remember what, tell me that I'm saying your name correctly. Iverson? Okay. Apparently in another hearing, I said it incorrectly, so now I'm nervous. All right. And we heard half on salaries for two employees and half on contractual services. And I don't know, maybe Director Iverson, you want to elaborate on those contractual services again? Because off the top of my head, I don't remember
What was the total?
575,000, I believe.
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, when you look at the budget, if you look at the layout, when you see a layout, it actually has its own organization number. It's 2120128 versus economic development, which has an organization. I don't think it's on this book, but they have organizational numbers. There are two different organizational numbers, but it has been consolidated here.
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, we do have a breakout that we use for our own purposes and budget. Out of the total $3.42 million economic development budget, the Metropolitan Redevelopment Authority is budgeted at $569,512.
570,000. Half of that's to salaries and half is contractual. Where's the rest of the, clearly enough, I'm confused here. Is the Midtown Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency the redevelopment of Midtown?
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, that is correct. The Midtown.
We've got a lot more money than that headed that direction this year. Where am I seeing that budget?
That is going to come through our capital outlay as we get it. And so this is sort of the operating budget. And so we have a separate capital budget, and most of the capital and infrastructure goes to Public Works. It does not come to this budget because the Public Works folks do the infrastructure work. So they have a specific Midtown operation and capital budget over in the Public Works Department. So I don't know whether they've hasn't come up for hearing yet. But they do have a line for that.
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, of the total that I gave you for the Metropolitan Redevelopment Authority, $279,353 is for salaries and benefits. $271,326 is for contractual services. That would include, let me get there, redevelopment project management, appraisals, translation services, outside consultant for a Midtown Activation Series. There's money in there for the Hopewell Man Neighborhood Stabilization Plan and redevelopment economic and planning services. In addition, the budget includes, let's see, approximately $2,500 for supplies, $2,000 for travel and training registration, $14,333 for advertising costs, and that pretty much rounds out the budget.
Appreciate it. All right, I'll just try to wrap this up, Chair. I know we're running behind. When do we expect the MRA to be formed? And I know we have a director. How about the rest of the?
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, yes, we put out the call for commissioners. I think that is the first step is to establish the commission. So we have a good pool of applicants, and we hope to bring that before you with a recommendation from the mayor shortly to be confirmed by this body. And then we will start on the MRA plan that would designate the area and a TIF plan, and those are all goals for this year.
Okay. It's not seemingly how we do it, but I think that it would be reasonable to have an overall vision of what the budget is for Midtown, rather than broken up into the $500,600,000 to the MRA, and then all the rest of it into Public Works. It seems like we're kind of bifurcating a budget so that we don't really see what the budget is. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Counselor. Just real quick, and then I'll go to a couple of, to the rest of the committee. This came up last night, and as you know, we did have a lengthy conversation about the consultants that you're hiring to support the work. The MRA itself is the direction in terms of setting it up is a resolution or an ordinance that we passed earlier, correct? Will you refresh my memory on that?
Madam Chair, that's correct. You all passed an ordinance, laid out what the MRA's mission and charge and jurisdiction and authority would be, which at this point, the way that ordinance reads is as an advisory body to the governing body.
Okay, and it did say in there what the makeup of the commission should look like, and so that's what you use as sort of your guiding document in the work that you're doing to get this off the ground. Okay, thank you. Councilor Cassett?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Just as you alluded to, we had a conversation about this last night, in case the message was not delivered. One thing that I was interested in, and I think it also alludes to what Councilor Lindell mentioned, was if we could get something that shows us all the different contractors and city staff and what they're doing and why, and how much money are we spending on each of these to help us put the puzzle together. As Director Wheeler mentioned last night, y'all who are in the room, you know what the puzzle looks like, but we don't necessarily have all the pieces at the same time. And so really understanding what that looks like would be extremely helpful. And then as Councilor Lindell also just mentioned, it's the staff, it's contractuals, and then we also have, this big capital budget that's going to be coming through from Midtown. So that would be extremely helpful as we continue to move forward with this project. Thank you.
Madam Chair, and can I just address something?
Sure.
I did listen to the YouTube last night. I just want to provide just some clarity on where we are. So I'm the executive sponsor of the Midtown redevelopment project. And I've hired Director Iverson here, who is the MRA director, and her job overall is to get this redevelopment project along the way, finding funding, finding the partners, getting the infrastructure ready, and start to develop the land by finding opportunity and with housing. Additionally, internally, there are lots of different partners. One of the major partners is our Public Works Department. And that Public Works Department is actually doing the preliminary work now because it's the infrastructure, what goes underground, the sewer, the land, the stormwater, et cetera. At the same time, Director Iverson is leading that partnership, but they are using outside consultants to do that because they don't have the capacity. And then as we move through the infrastructure toward development and development of projects, it still lies upon Director Iverson to make those contacts happen, but also find out and work through the regulatory pieces that may need to happen as we find an RFP out or send an RFP out to develop that land. That's where our land use department comes into play. That's where our legal department comes into play. And then currently she is going to use Mr. Hernandez as a strategic advisor, because right now we're working on infrastructure, but as we get to the development planning and the MRA plan, then the teams sort of come back together. So while we're doing infrastructure, Mr. Hernandez is not doing something day to day, but as we get to the development plan and design plan, that's when he comes back into it. I just want to lay that out there.
Other questions from the committee? Okay. As you can tell, there's a lot of interest in what you're doing and how it works, and anything you can do to help give us the whole picture would be helpful. Thank you. Director Brown, where are we going?
Next up, Madam Chair, we're going to have Director Jason Klug with Planning and Land Use Department.
Welcome.
Afternoon, Madam Chair, councilors. My name is Jason Klug. I'm the Planning and Land Use Director. Also here today, we have Assistant Directors Lamboy and Graham to answer any questions for their respective divisions. And then we also have Amanda Insinius, our administrative manager. If we need to drill down on any specific numbers in the budget, she can help with that. So the Planning and Land Use Department's mission is to provide expert land use and planning and development guidance and regulation that supports the built environment and the goals of the community. That takes shape in two major ways. The first one is safeguarding the health, safety, and wellness of the community and helping shape a more sustainable and harmonious built environment for all residents. So you can see how that can break down between the Land Development Code and the general plan, for example. And then following the budget book, I'm happy to provide any insight on the budget specifics that you would like to talk to, but to respect the format here, I'll move on to accomplishments and goals. Thanks. So we've had a lot of accomplishments in land use this year that I'm really proud of. So under administration category, we've hired we filled 12 vacant positions. Those did involve a couple of promotions within land use. So we've had a really exciting year hiring people and getting them trained and getting them executing the land use activities that we need to have happen for the community. There was one slight change. We actually hired 3 planner seniors, but one of those seniors backed out before we actually started. So we are looking for another planner senior now. And then we also completed the strategic, as you may remember, we completed the strategic salary increases for the key positions, mainly senior planners last year. And that definitely precipitated the ability to hire those 3, even though one backed out. So planning branch, we have ongoing efforts to complete phase 1 of the Land Development Code. And then we're in the process of general plan update request for proposals. We're now in contract negotiations with the potential or the chosen vendor. So we're excited about that. And we plan to come before you all before the end of the fiscal year for approval of that contract. So very soon. Development branch, so we just completed testing of the third-party plan review, and implementation has already happened. You all may have seen the announcement on Friday. So we're actually open for business for third-party plan review with our consultant, Safe Build. And so, as you all may understand, it provides an additional alternative approach to plan review and building permitting, and also augments our permitting staff. So we've also continued, the thing that I wanted to mention to you all that I'm really excited about is that we've continued to fully integrate business licensing section into the planning and land use department. And we're working with them with ongoing automation of services. Right now, we're undergoing integration with CSS and EnerGov so that people can apply directly online for business licenses. We've hired 2 key positions and as permanent hires, and they're both doing a great job. And we're super excited to have business licensing under our wing and have that integrate with our other services. And then also we have ongoing required building code updates, including the green building code update that we should have completed by the beginning of the fiscal year. And then a few digital process improvements. So we've implemented the housing pipeline. You all may remember, we've scanned over 95% of our plat room documents, and we've integrated those into an internal user-friendly database. We also intend to migrate all of our digital plats and plans and permits over onto this digital platform for the general plan, integrate those into the GIS base so that people can go onto that platform and view those and have easy access to them. And then last but not least, we're implementing the front desk appointment app. You all may have seen the new kiosk out by the business licensing office. So we would, those folks are coming to town in the middle of May to give us training and to implement that system. And then we will turn it on division by division as we know that those are ready to implement. So we should have that fully functioning by the end of the fiscal year, if not, a few weeks into the new fiscal year. So on goals, so related to the general plan, we do intend to kick that off next year in full force, in alignment with the land development code update, and also hire a strategic long-range planner that was approved last year to support that. So that's exciting. We plan to complete phase 1 of the land development code and get that approved in late fall, September, October timeline. And also begin phase 2 of the land development code. So the substantive changes to the code, again, in alignment with the general plan. So we'll have the guiding policy document and the ordinance aligning and, moving forward simultaneously. One thing we're also really excited about is finalizing the department reorganization, which you may have seen, and I can speak to the reasons for that if you'd like me to separate inspections and enforcement divisions and move enforcement under planning branch. It used to reside under planning branch, and it properly is a zoning activity in principle. So we want to do that for a few different reasons. Not to mention evening out the planning branch and the development branch staff-wise, so that they're easier to manage. Then again, fully implement front desk, as I mentioned, and then develop and implement a digital planning and development guide related to the general plan update. Move forward with full development of EnerGov, CSS, including e-review, and then ongoing staff training and professional development, such as public speaking training, customer service training, and then ongoing training for the different trades and the certifications that people have to keep up to be able to, do their mandated jobs. So we don't have much going on, just a little bit. So I think, I think with that, I'll stand for questions or sit for questions that may be.
Questions from the committee? Counselor Faulkner.
Jason, thank you so much. I really want to applaud the land use department. I know that you guys come under fire a lot, but having been on the planning commission, I also know that you guys have a huge workload, and under your leadership, I think the department's made some advancements that are really going to help in the long run. What can we do to help you?
Madam Chair, Councilor Faulkner, thank you for the question. So, that's an interesting question and I appreciate it. I think, getting the word out to the community, every chance you get about our basic mandate, which is, for better or worse, police action, enforcing our code. It seems like there's a lot of misunderstanding about that. Also, I'm just going to add, and also, it also gives me a chance to plug our upcoming convening on May 10th. One thing that people really struggle with is how to come in and successfully process a planning activity or a permit. And so anything you all can do to help, because I think you all have I think you understand it. I'm happy to speak to you all and help you understand our process in more depth. But anything you can do to speak to your constituents about how to approach land use, both for related to enforcement, regulation items, and also the planning and permitting process. So we're definitely interested in permitting literacy, and that'll be the main topic of this upcoming convening. And we want it to be a series where we talk about individual topics that people tend to struggle with or that they may not quite understand, as well as they need to have a seamless process with land use. So yeah, anything that you all can help on that front, I think would be more than welcome.
Counselor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Whoa, what is with us? Thanks, Carol. I'm just gonna go with that from now on. And thank you, Director Klug, for being here. I also want to echo what Counselor Faulkner, why can't we talk to each other today? About the amount of work that the land use team does. I know I have inserted myself quite a bit into a lot of the projects that I'm very excited about. And I really do see a team that has a lot on their plate and much more than they can do, and yet they somehow do it. So really want to thank your team. Speaking of positions, you have 15 vacant positions listed in our budget book. I know one of them is the enforcement division manager, director. What are those other positions that you have vacant right now? Obviously, one's another senior planner.
Grab my notes. So let's see. So, Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, so you're correct. The enforcement division manager is vacant. We're working with HR to modify a job description, create that job description, and get it reclassed in conjunction with the reorg to separate enforcement and inspections. So other positions that we have vacant: strategic long range planner, which we're actually interviewing for next week. We have a planner position in planning, which we're interviewing for next week. We have construction inspector supervisor position, which also we're working with HR on that to modify a job description for based on the construction inspector position, and then we can get that advertised. Let's see, we have a couple of construction we lost our construction inspector supervisor for mechanical and plumbing. We're advertising for that. We actually have a list of eligibles now for that. We have a plumbing and mechanical inspector vacant position. We also have an LOE for that. So things are actually looking up. Electrical position, we've been struggling to get that. Luckily, we already do have 2 electrical inspectors, so it's not hurting us too much, but we would like to get that filled. And then we have a permit specialist position, which we are working. Somebody has accepted that offer, and we're working on the budget to get that person hired. That's all inspections. Building, we have construction plans examiner 2 that's been vacant for a while. As you all know, I've spoken about that before. It's a little bit of a unicorn, so it's a challenging position to hire. We also have building plans reviewer that's vacant. So we're actually missing 2 out of 3 of our current plans reviewers, building plans reviewers. My intention, and I think HR has been helping us, is my intention is to create the construction plans examiner 2 position as soon as we can. but actually before that, include in the advertisement, for that position, allow it to go out for plans examiner 1 and 2, and whichever person comes in with those qualifications, we can hire them. We're working to hire the building plan reviewer internally, getting some people sent to training so that they're qualified to apply for that. But really long-term, what we really need to do is create a ladder within that division that allows people to come in with very little experience, earn that experience as they, move forward in their lifetime in that position, and then are able to advance into, more and more complex positions. And so we want to work with HR next year to modify those job descriptions to allow that to happen, or continue to modify them. We've been working on that for a few months now. So that's the plan, to get those positions more easily filled, because I think it will be perpetually difficult to find them from the outside. We also have the permit expediter position that's vacant. We should have an LOE with a few people coming in on that soon. And then permit technician is another vacant position. On that note, we're looking at hiring this communications analyst in position, communications and systems analyst. Thank you, Rich. Systems analyst position. We weren't able to get that in this year's budget as a new position, but we are looking at potentially freezing a couple of the permit technician positions to create that new position at a higher rate. It still will be a union position, but that person will effectively be able to some degree, also manage the positions that we're freezing. They'll be able to help on that front as well. So it won't be necessarily a 100% loss of, to inspections and building division where we're taking those positions. So that's on the table. We haven't really gotten into the logistics of that yet. And then finally, we have the engineer position in engineering that's been vacant. That's another one that's very difficult to fill. We got the budget last year, as you all know, so I have hopes that we will fill that sooner than later. And then we just created, we had 2 engineer associate positions. We've just reclassed one of those into engineer tech senior position. And our goal is to, obviously we have to go out for advertisement, but our goal is to try to promote from within for that position, to again create a hierarchy within the division, and create that career ladder, which is essential in these divisions like building and engineering, so that we maintain this long-term resilience. And so that position is, I believe it's advertised. And so we look forward to getting an LOE on that soon.
Thank you. This helps answer one of my other questions, was looking at how much contractuals and utilities have increased. I know a lot of that is general plan and code update, but I also understand that we're having to go to a lot of contracts to fill in some of this work because we are understaffed. Is that an accurate assessment of why contractuals have really increased over the last couple of years?
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, that's correct. Our budget was actually reduced by 134,000 in contracts this year. That money had been used for that exact purpose. I'm hopeful that this year we won't need as much of it.
Great.
That doesn't leave us any wiggle room for emergencies, but with the way we're hiring, it looks like we can ask for that money mid-year if we need it, but for now, I think it's fine to have that go to better use.
Okay, wonderful. And then last question, I'll be speedy. I know that a couple of years ago, we had talked about this traffic cop position, because some of the feedback that I really get from land use, and I'm really excited to hear about these convenings where you're trying to, increase essentially land use literacy, because it is its own separate language that if you don't speak it, when you start to look at things, it just doesn't make sense. Is that position, did it ever get filled? Is it still, it doesn't sound like it's funded if it's not filled, but it was supposed to be almost this customer service position that was going to help people figure out how to navigate. And I know that is still an issue that I hear a lot about from a variety of different people. And so do we have a plan for that in terms of really helping with this navigation of the department?
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassidy, yes, so that's the communications analyst position that I was referring to.
Okay,
It's kind of, it's morphed over the years, but now we want it to really be, communication systems analyst, because we realize the nexus there of the, the communications and kind of reception capacity that this person needs to have with managing the related systems, such as the front desk appointment app and the planning and development guide that we're, hoping to get off the ground next year.
okay, and being somebody that's kind of the primary person to answer phones and,
Exactly.
okay, wonderful. Okay, so it's just changed its name.
Direct communications, not necessarily answer phones, but definitely direct and channelized communications to the appropriate staff member.
Okay, all right. Well, glad to hear that that is still something that we have, or that you all have your eye on. As I know it's been a big point that I've heard a lot from the community. So I will yield the floor. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Just a couple quick things. When you say fully implement the front desk appointment scheduling application, is that that's not like like an old fashioned front desk where you're gonna have somebody who answers the phone, and that's like a software application.
Right, Madam Chair, correct. It's a software application. So very similar to when you go to the doctor's office and you check in with a kiosk and they give you a number. It's similar to that, except it also has a component where you can check in on your phone, you can check in on your computer at home. You can schedule an appointment at those two places. You can also schedule an appointment at the kiosk. So it's a fairly robust appointment scheduling application, purely digital.
And does it answer phones?
Madam Chair, it does not answer phone.
Okay.
We don't have the AI for that yet.
All right. And then my other question is around the green building code. I saw that somewhere. Where was it? Update. Here, right? Green
Yes.
building code. I'm not seeing it, but I know I saw it somewhere. So that is now residing in your department? Because it was with Neil Denton in environmental services, right? Did it move? And I know I saw it somewhere, but now I'm not paying my hand. Oh, I know, it's in the budget book.
Right.
Thank-
Well, it's also under the major goals. I apologize. Madam Chair, so as you may be aware, Neil Denton has moved on from the city.
Correct.
Before he left, we had a transition period. And so now we're with him to, absorb his ideas for the green code. We've done that effectively. We're contracting with
Doug Bouchard and Cruel Water, I think is.
right, thank you.
Yep.
To take those ideas, combine them with the intricacies of the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code, and expunge the kind of now irrelevant parts of the green code, and put together a green code that incorporates Neil's concepts, which are much more tightly related to the IECC now, the 2021 IECC, and then combine those into a new Chapter 7 code that's also augmented by our HERS and WERS requirements, et cetera. So a much more tidy code that's much more heavily based on the international existing building code, International Energy Conservation Code.
And it'll also be directed towards multifamily, right? So what water conservation standards for multifamily?
That's
Predominantly.
That's still under consideration, but yes, that's correct.
Okay. And the timing on all this, this is something I've been very interested in. We, lots of things have been going on. We had to have the state adopt certain things so that we could adopt something. And there's all these dominoes that had to fall. And now I'm delighted that we have somebody under contract. Sorry we lost Neil, but sounds like the work he was doing is not for naught and is being captured. But just curious on the timing for this. Is something I'm very interested in.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I apologize if we've inadvertently left you out of the loop on that. I know you're definitely involved. And actually, we talked to, what's the gentleman, I'm blanking on his name, who represents WERS. not Doug, but is it, yeah, Doug Burchard, yeah.
Yeah.
So the last time we met, he actually relayed that he was going to give you an update. So if that didn't happen, I apologize. But anyway, even if he did, I think we can, as we move forward with this in the coming months, we'll definitely, keep you apprised. And I believe the deadline is end of July to have the green building code updated.
Okay, terrific. I'm glad to see progress on this. It's been a long time in coming. Other questions from the committee? All right, there's so many things we could talk about in land use, but the hour does not allow. But I appreciate the thumbnail sketch that you've given us and all the work you're doing to make improvements, which, as we all know, are important. So thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm going to ask Director Randall to come to the stand.
Great.
Tourism Santa Fe.
Madam Chair, Randy Randall, Tourism Director.
Welcome.
Thank you. The mission for the Tourism Department is to promote economic development through tourism by positioning Santa Fe as a world-class destination that offers leisure and business travelers unique opportunities and authentic experiences in a memorable, beautiful, culturally and historically significant setting. The major accomplishment, here we go. We raised the profile of the city in the major rankings, both travel and leisure and Condé Nast. We moved up to number 2 for the city destinations. We've maintained the record-setting occupancy and rates in the hotels and short-term rentals of the prior fiscal year, allowing us to generate in excess of $17 million in lodgers tax collections for the second year. And to put that into perspective, the best single year pre-pandemic was 12.8 million. So it's a significant increase in collections, which is primarily through an increase in average rate by the facilities. We've continued the in-house production of the visitor guide, dining guide. We've added a new flamenco brochure, and we'll be working on some other brochures this next year that'll be again produced in-house. We've attended 13 meeting planner forums and trade shows to promote Santa Fe to bring us back, to bring the meeting market back to Santa Fe. Participated in 4 travel and adventure shows that are consumer shows that we go to in our primary city suppliers of tourism to the city. We've initiated a new marketing partnership that you all are aware of with Kiwanis, with their special shape Zozobra hot air balloon. We've successfully hosted over 220 meetings and events at the community convention center. So it has had some use in 252 days over the last year. One of my favorites, there are over 41,000 people right now on the Margarita Trail, and about 30,000 downloads of the Visit Santa Fe app that we offer. And just in the since this was printed, we've added well over 1,500 more participants in the Margarita Trail. And our group sales inquiries and lead distributions are pacing ahead of where they were in the best year, again, pre-pandemic. So while we saw an immediate rebound in leisure business to the city, we're starting to see now the amount of group business that's important to maintain occupancy come back. For our goals, they're pretty basic and simple. We want to maintain that lodgers tax collection above the $17 million level, which is not as easy as it sounds, as both international and other travel options are opening up more and more to the traveling public. We want to support all efforts to minimize the impact of the homelessness in our most visible tourism areas of the city. We want to add a direct flight, one more flight coming into the Santa Fe Airport, and tourism works with the Santa Fe Airport to try to secure those flights. We want to activate the $4 million advertising campaign that Director Brown mentioned earlier. And we want to continue significant improvements to the Community Convention Center to ensure that it stays in the first-class facility that it is. And with that, I would stand for questions.
Great, thank you. Counselor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director Randall. Really been a banner year, hasn't it? Been a really good one.
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, it really has been the second one in a row, which is terrific.
I always say an N of one is significant. Quick question on your goals and operating major goals. Improvements to the convention center. What are the main things that we need to undertake there?
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, it's basically an update of quite a few of the systems that were put in there when it was built, 12, 13 years ago, that have now become obsolete. So it all relates to lighting and climate control. From a physical standpoint to the eye, we've been able to maintain that on a regular basis, but there is a need to update some of the software programs and the software aspects of the building that cause it to work.
Do we have any more work to do on the audio side?
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, we're always trying to work on that audio side because it's a big room, and I would guess that the way the sound was designed for it is a little bit obsolete. How we really get that improved, we're not quite there.
I understand that. I just would encourage us to continue to focus on that because it's such a terrific center and people love to be there and it's visually stunning. But we continue to have audio issues there, and let's see if we have a way of improving it. But the center itself is terrific. I think the staff over there they're wonderful, and I think we're on the right path with all of this. So thank you very much.
Other questions from the committee? What's the timing on the adding a new direct flight destination to the Santa Fe Airport? Any sense of that? Do we have to first get all the renovations or the first phase done to really be able to?
Madam Chair, you're correct. We're not quite ready to showcase it,
Right.
but I think that'll happen in the next 60 days. How soon an additional flight could come in? We are talking to one airline, FSX, that provides more upscale type transportation, fewer passengers on the same size plane. They come through the fixed base operator instead of the main terminal. They're interested in talking to us about a trip in flights to Burbank. But one of the keys to bringing in the next airline is to get a grant in place. The state government has a grant that we could apply for up to $4 million of $4 to $5 million for seat guarantees, specifically for guarantees, which is the easiest way to attract either an existing airline to expand its service or a new airline to come in. And the nice part is that we limited before to just expanding what either American or United would provide. We now have room with the renovated terminal for a third carrier. And I'm hopeful that we might be able to attract an Alaska or one in. Everyone always asks me if we can get Southwest in, and they, by board policy, will not service two destinations without significant population base within 100 miles of each other. So it's not a possibility. But Alaska is definitely.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Interject.
Sure.
If you would be kind enough when James Harris, the airport manager, comes to ask him that question as well. They're in the process right now of having completed an RFP for a third carrier. As part of that application, they are requesting a direct flight to Los Angeles area, which a new carrier and or United or American could address and do. I think you know that we've seen United Airlines expand to a direct flight to Houston. In the month of March, it was 1 day a week, 1 flight each way. They've doubled that to 2 flights every Saturday, coming and going. And so we will be doing a full court press now that the terminal is completed with Randy and his team and others with Fly Santa Fe to wine and dine the leadership of American United to help them understand the investments we're making here in our airport, the economic impact it has on our community, and why it's good for them to increase the flights in and out every day. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is, this is another thing I'm interested in. I think this is very exciting. It'll help with collecting $17 million in lodger's tax. One more way to bring that money in. So, yeah. There's a lot on your goals that we could spend time on. Unfortunately, we don't have time. In fact, we're going to talk now about how we do a little bit of rearranging our schedule here. But anyway, thank you for the work, and we'll talk offline on other questions. But always interested. All right. With that, I think we've finished your budget, correct?
Madam Chair, you're correct. We've finished. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for the conversation. Do we have a motion on this budget?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the community, what do I call you, services?
Development Department.
Community development. I still can't get all these names right. Can we get, I guess we need a roll call, right?
Yes, please, Madam Chair. Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner, Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell, Chair Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, so we have made a recommendation to approve the Community Development Department budget for approval by the governing body. Thank you all for being here. We still have the general services budget in front of us. I would like to, I want to hear the city attorney's budget and the municipal court budget, and then depending on the committee, I'm also thinking maybe we do the city manager, city council, and risk and safety on Monday, just because I'm concerned we will have basically to do these 2 budgets. It's going to take us to time. And I know councilors have other things scheduled this afternoon. So yes, Councilor Lindell.
We see how far we get through this week before we commit to Monday.
Oh, I think we have a Monday already, right?
Madam Chair and councilors, yes, we had planned to have the wrap-up meeting on the resolution on Monday.
So we were planning to meet on Monday, but we may have to hear a couple of budgets as well. I'm trying not to get us, we have Tuesday as an overflow day, and I'm trying not to use Tuesday. And City Attorney, why don't you all come down while we have this little conversation? So the other thing is we can see how far we get here. But at a minimum, I would like to do the city attorney's budget and the municipal court budget, and then we'll see where we are. I mean, if you all want to push through a couple more this afternoon, or we postpone city managers, mayor, and city council, since we're here anyway. I just feel for these folks who've made time in their schedules today to be here. I want to make sure we get through all of those. All right. We'll think about that, and we'll go to the city attorney. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Romero Worth. Thank you, members of the Finance Committee. I'm here to present the City Attorney's Office budget today. Thank you for your time in hearing the budget. I have a couple team members with me. Catherine Garcia Gallegos is to my right. She is our IPRA manager and is in the process of hiring our 2 new records specialists to fill out her team. To my left is Amy Cawthon. She's our new administrative manager for the office. She came in this fall. She's actually just hit her 6-month past her probationary period as of last week. She replaced Irene Romero, who had retired after 23 years with the city in the fall, and she has been getting up to speed extremely quickly. And our 3rd supervisor in the office, Marcy E. Anarino, is on annual leave this week. I think this is really the first multi-day time she's taken off, and she's been with us about a year now. So she would have loved to be here, but she's not able to be. Our mission is to advise, defend, and protect the city and enforce its laws in a timely and just manner. As I mentioned, we have 3 other supervisors in the office besides myself. And so I consider us to have essentially 4 programs. One is the legal program, one's the administrative support and legal support services. One is the Office of Records Custodians, and one is the Office of Legislation and Policy Innovation. So among those offices, we have 20 FTE. Currently, we have 3 vacancies. One is the policy analyst. We just got our POL today. We have 11 candidates. That's great. We will be scheduling interviews very soon. The other 2 positions are posted, and please send qualified candidates our way for those records specialists. There are 8 attorneys total. One is myself. One is the city prosecutor. You've got 2 senior assistant city attorneys, Chris Ryan and Marcos Martinez. And then you have 5 assistant city attorneys, including the city prosecutor. I'm going to turn on and off the ringer back and forth. We also have had 8 interns in our office within the last year from the work-based learning program. We had 2 last spring, 2 in the summer, and we currently have 4, and we're interviewing for summer interns again. And you'll hear about some of our accomplishments. Actually, the interns helped us achieve, so it's been a really exciting collaboration with them. And we are also going to have a St. John's intern this summer, which is funded through a program the St. George College has. So we're getting that student with funding, but not from the city's budget. Same thing with the the work-based learning are from the economic development budget from the ARPA funds. We have a lot. I asked my team to help me put together our accomplishments, and I got pages and pages. We had to whittle those down to submit to the budget book, and the budget book has a subset of those. And your presentation has, I believe, some of the budgets and some of the other ones. But I did want to highlight that among our 8 attorneys, we bring to you 150 years of legal experience, which I think is kind of incredible for just 8 attorneys. And we've practiced across the board in all different areas. Private practice, 6 of us, military JAG, 1 of us, other cities, 4 of us, state of New Mexico, 4 of us, assistant district attorneys or a district attorney, 3 of us, public defense, 2 of us, immigration, 1 of us, legal aid, 1 of us, judicial law clerk, 1 of us, and the legislature, 1 of us. So a great diversity of backgrounds and legal experiences that we bring to the office. And we have been working in various teams on different projects and helping each other out to make our final products better. Over the last year, the IPRA team, well, actually not over the last year, but in the year 2023, IPRA team processed 8,323 IPRA requests. We are on track to get over 10,000 requests this calendar year. And Catherine can answer questions about that. She's done quite a bit of analysis. Our response time has decreased this year. I think it's because of some processes she's been able to implement, and she's also using those interns quite a bit for redactions. But her team now is on a rotating schedule. She could talk about that if you have questions. In 2023, we also reviewed and approved 770 contracts for legal form and sufficiency. That's the program that Amy now oversees, but she overlapped with Irene last year in 2023. And we're working with all the different departments to help streamline that process, and with the procurement team. The prosecutor handled 220 DWI cases with an 85% conviction rate. My team reviewed 226 disciplinary actions and 31 internal affairs reports. That's working with HR and the police department. We provided code of ethics trainings to over 1,100 employees and to the governing body through over 20 sessions, both live and on Zoom. And we provided direct representation or oversight to outside counsel on approximately 60 active cases at any given time that are in both state and federal courts. So that number does not include any of the prosecutions in municipal court. It does include some of the appeals to district court from municipal court. And those are de novo, so the whole case is heard again. We had some pretty significant accomplishments for litigation this year. We had a settlement in the Country Club case regarding the 60-plus-year-old contract for effluent in exchange for public access to golf. We had the 2019 application for return flow Challenge resolved. We had a district court, a Court of Appeals case against New Mexico Surf about the unpermitted tower resolved. We're working on a final court order right now. That case hasn't been dismissed yet because of that order that's still being negotiated. We had the New Mexico Court of Appeals case, the Shook v. governing body of the city of Santa Fe, also known as the Zia Station case, resulting in a published opinion that upheld the city's land use case review process. We had a 10th Circuit case, New Mexico Surf v. Weber, upholding our telecommunications ordinance. That case was given a express shout out during one of the bigger presentations that I attended this weekend at a international municipal lawyers conference. And the lawyer, when she met me, went out of her way to say, Santa Fe, wow, you've had some really good results recently in the 10th Circuit. So I think we all need to be proud of that. And we were given a shout out in the large presentation about telecom law and the update in that area of the law. So I alerted Marcos Martinez about that today. That was his case. He handled it entirely himself, no outside counsel. We had our prosecutor win a fresh pursuit case in district court, which was a big case for him and involved a lot more work than a lot of his other prosecutions. A lot of our work is helping other departments be successful at what they're doing. So things like helping with the safe outdoor space pilot project, the mobile hygiene unit, and the high-end excise tax. We're highly involved in projects like that, from negotiating contracts, assisting with regulations, researching different rules, things like the Old Pecos Trail rezoning, take a lot of work that might not be necessarily reflected in a particular case, but is bigger than that. And then they do become cases as well. So some of the other cases pending are the traditional historic community case regarding Agua Fria. That's fully briefed and pending. The Old Pecos Trail case is fully briefed and pending. And the appeal of the Botoff case is, I think, in the works. Other things that we help other divisions with are things like disposition of city land for affordable housing, like the property on Alta Street that was highlighted earlier. We're in the process of working with the departments on Las Estrellas and the Midtown properties. This year we had quite a bit of success with nuisance abatement with many properties. I think we made quite a bit of progress there, and we're about to be submitting foreclosure cases for several of those, and that'll be, I believe, the first time we've done that. We also did a court order on one of those to get the tax lien, or sorry, not the tax lien, the abatement lien paid, which I believe we've gotten that check. That went through its own special process because the property was subject to tax sale by the state taxation by the county, but the taxation and revenue department had to receive the lien for us, the revenue from that. So we were able to accomplish that. And that was a new process, I think, for everyone, us, the district court judge, and the taxation department. We helped with things like the art gallery contract negotiation for the airport. So these are these types of things that just happen on a day-to-day basis. Couple other big processes this year were the Charter Commission and updating all of the resolutions to reflect those recommendations and the ballot questions that were associated with them, along with the high-end excise tax for affordable housing. We've also been working with other departments to modernize city processes and systems. You will note now that on Muni Code, you can pick either the city's code or resolutions. I mentioned this earlier that the interns have helped with something. That's one of the projects they've been helping us with, is that now the last 10 years of resolutions, maybe 12 now as of yesterday, the last 12 years of resolutions are now searchable by word. So you can search for Midtown and find everything that relates to Midtown that is a resolution. That was not possible on the city's website previously, and it caused a lot of challenges for us to be able to find things easily. So we would get folks saying, what's a resolution about? And the ideas they mentioned might not be in the title, and they might not come up on the city's website. So now they are OCR scanned, they are word searchable, and they're saved by year, but also you can search by your word. So you can search by your name. If you were a sponsor, you can find everything that your name is included on. You can search by a topic. And we're gonna continue that process. We're hiring some more interns for the summer, so we're hoping that they will continue to help us. It is the last week for our current interns. And then we've also been working with Travis, the procurement manager, and his team to help reduce steps in the contract process. And Amy's been actively participating in that and has started to implement those time savings. Just a couple high level things about our budget. I did a couple pie charts to refresh my memory how to do that. Our funding by categories on the first one, you'll notice that most of our funding is personnel. A very small part is for contracts. A significant part is for other, and I broke that out by parts. 48% of that other is a general liability assessment. We're looking into those numbers because it looks like all the IPRA was attributed to our office, and some of the numbers I had reviewed had incorrect council numbers. So I don't know if that number would stay the same or not, but I've been following up, trying to find out what's going on there. Because the breakdown we saw had incorrect council numbers for outside counsel for a bunch of the cases that are currently pending. And the correct number is lower, which is great. 31% is for services by other city departments and 14% is for software. And then the next pie chart just shows a breakdown of by program. And for this is based on personnel services and benefits and the contract amounts. So most of the contract are in the legal contract. So the attorneys and legal support portion of the budget there includes our contracts and the personnel for legal program employees, and then the other ones are the personnel for the other employees. And then I will go to goals. We have a lot of goals for the next year as well. I'll just mention a few of them. We have a number of lawsuits we would like to resolve, including the obelisk lawsuit and our high-end excise tax ordinance. There were 3 different briefings filed on Friday related to that litigation, including our response to the plaintiffs, motion for summary judgment, our motion for summary judgment, and a motion to compel for discovery, because we did not receive very much from the plaintiffs to substantiate their case. We also would like to resolve a case about our firearms resolution, about notice of existing firearms restrictions, the Botoff rezoning appeal, and the St. John's Cell Tower Historic Districts Review Board Administrative Appeal that's been pending for quite a while. We're hoping to complete foreclosures for those municipal liens that I mentioned earlier. We are also hoping to fill our vacancies very soon, to continue education and training for the city with relation to IPRA, legislation, police prosecutions, contracts, procurement, code enforcement, liability, etc. Catherine has begun doing IPRA trainings for different offices in the city, starting with our highest utilization departments, such as the police and land use and HR. And we will continue to do those trainings and probably start differentiating them for different types of users. We are working on decreasing our turnaround time for public records requests, and we already have been achieving successes in that category. We're working to continue to improve processes and transparency by reducing steps in the contract process and by making more records available online whenever possible. With regards to water, we're hoping to help the water department get their return flow environmental permits. The airport, we're working with the airport division director and his team to modernize all the tenants' terms and fees. With Midtown and Economic Development, we're working to enter development and disposition agreements for Midtown Film and Art Center sites. And with the asset management team, and the Affordable Housing Department, we're working with the Las Estrellas disposition. A lot going on in our department. We're happy to answer questions.
Questions from the committee? I'm just curious, your contracts for outside counsel support, is there a change in that budget at all? You can't really tell from what we have. And I don't notice much of a percentage change in your overall budget. It's like 3% or something.
Thank you for the question, Chair Romero-Worth. I actually do have information about all the changes to the budget that were of 1% or more. And one is to contracts, it's decreasing it. I guess what I understand is the logic is that our utilization has not been 100%, which I think is good. The more contract counsel we use, it means that we're needing more help externally or that we have litigation that we're not able to handle in-house. One of the reasons our contract budget was not fully utilized this year and will not be is because we didn't enter the contract for Midtown support until halfway through the year. We weren't ready for it until then, so we did 100,000 on that. I'm not sure how much of it we'll end up spending, but I think the bulk of that will be next year, really. So a lot of our contract utilization depends on timing of the needs for cases and clients. And it's not necessarily something we can
Foreshadow.
know for sure.
Yeah.
Right? We would like to budget more than we need, and we would like to not use the full budget because that is good for the city. But we did have an 8.4 increase in total salaries. That was 132,000, a 42% decrease in legal contracts of 136,000. My proposal was less than last year's, but it was more than what was in the budget. A 87.8 increase to general liability assessment. That was 125,000 additional, which is why I had looked into that in more detail. And a 22.4 decrease to employee health insurance. I think that just has to do with who was in the department previously and who's there now, and whether or not they need insurance or their partner already has insurance, that kind of thing.
Okay, just curious. Other questions from the committee? Thank you. Thank you to your office. I know you guys work extremely hard, and nice to have you here.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
I don't think, Director Oster, are we, on this general services, are we gonna approve them all at once? Or?
Madam Chair, I think it's up to the committee. I think with the other departments, we've done it at that level.
Right, but this one seems a little bit, I don't know. I guess I'd entertain a motion to approve the city attorney's budget, and on these, I think maybe we should do them.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion, and a second to approve this budget. Can we get a roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Counselor Cassett.
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner's out of the room.
Stepped out. Maybe I'll step back before you get through.
Counselor Lee Garcia.
Yes.
Counselor Lindell. Chair Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. All right. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out with us. So I did hear that we actually are scheduled to go to 4:30. So maybe we'll get in more than we think here, but I'm going to go to the municipal court budget next. Just to make sure that we get in the budgets of the people who have scheduled to be with us. Greetings.
You may recall from my swearing in speech, I like to be short and quick, so we'll move forward quickly. So I'm Judge Chad Chittum. The mission of the municipal court is to administer justice in a fair, equitable, efficient, professional, and consistent manner. And last 4 months, the court has been finding its rhythm with me as the new judge. I'll point that out. And one of the things that I'm really proud of these accomplishments is the implementation of a hybrid court system. So prior to COVID, the court was a in-person system. During COVID, it became virtual. Now, starting in February, for most hearings, members of the public, law enforcement, attorneys have the ability and the option to appear either virtually, via Zoom, via telephone, or in person. So for example, I'm on the bench every day at the court, but not everybody is in the courtroom. They're either in, a lot of people like to be in the courtroom, they'd like to see the judge. But also a lot of people for convenience purposes and whatnot like to appear virtually, Zoom or telephone. So I believe that is a huge accomplishment. I'm very excited about being able to offer that to the members of the public, law enforcement, attorneys, etc. Another one of the accomplishments I like to point out is the language access specialist incentive pay policy. That is a policy that we did a couple of years ago, but we continue to use that policy. As of right now, 8 out of the 15 employees are language access specialists. So what that means is they're able to use their bilingual skills, Spanish language interpreting in the court that really does save the court some time, efficiency, and money in regards to having that interpretation services available readily. Talk about some goals that the municipal court has. We always want to continue safety, provide safety not only for the court staff, the judge, but also for members of the public. So we're going to keep trying to accomplish those goals with trying to purchase a new walk-through metal detector. Our metal detector is some years old. It is still efficient, it is still working, but there are upgrades we want to do to that, including purchasing an X-ray machine that will help when you come into the courtroom. As in the airport, you can screen your bag versus having to open it for the security officer to look at. The other thing is the programs, specialty programs. We've been working for some time with AOC, the Administrative Offices of the Courts, to get our certification for our DWI drug court program. We're almost there. With this budget, we'll be able to get a single source treatment provider, which is one of the requirements of having that certification. So we're really looking forward to that. In addition, a couple of the other programs that we'd like to implement. One would be an alternative sentencing program for young offenders. These are ages 18 to 25-year-olds. We want to stress to these 18 to 25-year-olds that being young is not forever, but some of the consequences from their decisions can be. So it's very important to us to try to get this program going to address those types of issues. In addition to that program, want to have a first-time offenders program, a non-DWI first-time offenders program. Say, for example, you have a battery case, someone that's never been in trouble before. In this program, the ideal situation was to offer some anger management things, information, provide them with the different connections to all the service providers that are out in the city of Santa Fe and in the county, versus them having to go and pay for it themselves. We would have it in-house and offer those services. So those are some of the accomplishments, some of the goals that we have. I will stand for questions.
Questions from the committee? Councilor Lindo.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here, Judge. So you're a new judge, but you aren't new to that building, correct?
That is correct.
Worked there for several years. Is this budget that you put through, you feel like it's adequate for the goals that you want to accomplish?
I do, and thank you. I've been at the municipal court since February 2016, capacity as a city prosecutor, then the staff attorney, and now judge. So I do. We've played around with it. We've looked at it. We've adjusted it. So right now, I do. Thank you for that question. We do have the budget. In this budget, we should address all of our needs.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming down today.
Any other questions? Councilor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here, Judge. Just curious about the virtual option. Have you seen, increased efficiency, increased court appearances? Has this made a difference in terms of, making sure that people are actually showing up when they're supposed to?
Great question. Yes, to answer your question, yes, it is more efficient. I do see more people showing up because they do have options. I don't have those exact numbers because this has just been since February. But yes, if someone says, well, I couldn't make it to the court, well, you don't have to make it to the court. Just call us. You don't have to spend, a full day down there. So absolutely, it's been more efficient. More people have been showing up. What's interesting is I do find that a lot of people still want to appear in person, although it is convenient, but a lot of people do want to walk through those doors. They want their story heard, speak to the judge face to face.
Wonderful. Well, very happy that we're providing options to our residents. So thank you for putting that in place. I really do appreciate it. No further questions.
Great to have you. I don't see anybody else waving at me. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion is second to approve this budget. Director Oster, can we get a roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner, Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell, Chair Romero Worth,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you for hanging out with us all day. All right, so now we have questions of timing. We do have people with other places they need to be. But we may, I don't know, City Manager Blair, do you want to go quick? Do you want to, all right. We are, but we've got some other schedules that are, I'm trying to accommodate. Welcome.
Madam Chair, councilors, thank you for having me today. I don't have much of a presentation. The bulk of the work that the city manager's office does is in support of all of the other departments. And so selfishly, I will claim their victories as my own. Selfishly, I will take some responsibility where they have challenges and hurdles to overcome. The budget request that we've made this year for the city manager's office is marginally larger than last year. It's about a 3.3% increase, roughly $39,000 over what we had the last fiscal year. And so I don't have a list of accomplishments or presentations for you, but I'm happy to stand for any questions that you all have.
Questions from the committee? Yes, Councilor Cassett.
I'm assuming that increase is new staff. Was that a safe assumption?
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, I do have a new administrative assistant who's been on the team now for about 3 weeks, which has been a huge help already. It's been extraordinary to see that administrative work can get done while I'm in other meetings. It's been a true joy. She's been a great asset. Her name is Bernice Senna, and we're thrilled to have her. We also, over the last fiscal year, did step up again by hiring a new senior advisor within the city manager's office, Bernie Toon, and the mayor's assistant. We had some turnover, but Angie Brown is currently the mayor's executive assistant as well. And while not sitting here at the table with me now, we're thrilled to have Deputy City Manager Layla Archuleta Maestas back with us after a brief period of leave. And Mr. Hopkins is hovering, so he may have more information than I.
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, in the majority of city departments, including the city manager's office, where you have employees that are either non-union, ASME, or I believe they're all, besides the city manager and deputy city manager, they're non-union, you will see increases in personnel due to the classification and compensation study increases. So that would be the majority of what's happening here. And again, it's happening across the board.
That makes sense. Thank you so much. No further questions.
Great. So no additional staff at this point. You're not adding FTEs to the city manager's
No, ma'am,
office
not
at
right
this
now.
time. Right. So the increase is purely because of the class and comps upgrade to the salary structure. Other questions from the committee? Is there a motion?
Move to approve?
Second. Motion and a second to approve this budget. Can we get a roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner, Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell is out of the room. Chair Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. And now I would like to, your budget recommendation is approved to go to the governing body. I'd like to, before you have to leave, city manager, I'd like to get risk down, and let's do risk real quick. Do we have time? Can we do that? Okay. Welcome. Hi, welcome back. Why don't you introduce yourselves in case there are people watching who don't know your faces, and
Good afternoon. My name is Layla Archuleta Maestas. I'm the Deputy City Manager.
great. And if you guys speak into the mics with the green light on, we can hear you in the chamber, but when you're streaming, the voices don't translate if you're not talking right into the mic.
So the Risk and Safety Office consists of two functional units, the risk management and safety. So together these units serve to collaboratively assist City of Santa Fe employees to create a safer work environment for all employees. They do this by assisting departments to properly identify, manage, and mitigate hazards and financial risks. And finance risks. Their goal really is to reduce the frequency, severity, and associated costs of injuries and claims, and serve as a resource for the health and safety and well-being of Santa Fe employees. So the major goals, do you want to talk about the major goals?
Major goals for this year are to begin another RFP for third-party insurance broker services and an RFP for TPA self-insured workers' compensation claims administration. Continue conducting citywide appraisals with third-party insurance brokers. Reinstitute monthly claims analysis with department and divisions for work comp and general liability. Complete insurance applications for FY26. And continue working to reducing number of incidents through prevention, training, and lessons learned. Our office conducted 69 new employee orientation and defensive driving courses. We conducted 12 supervisor safety presentations for supervisors, conducted 42 defensive driving courses additionally to the new employee orientation, provided various safety trainings to all city employees to sustain current training requirements, and expand safety inspections of city facilities and incident investigations of employees for a total of 356 trainings this year.
To go off of that, those are the goals. And then for the major accomplishments, the number of courses offered were 287 of various safety topics. The new employee safety orientation that were conducted was 69. And then remaining for the rest of the fiscal year, there's 8 safety topics, and the new employee safety orientation, there's 7. There's a plethora, if you can see, of training topics offered, and they're very frequent, and as they're needed, they are added. So if anybody requests a special safety training, or that there's something that we feel is necessary, it is added to the training. And now we stand for questions.
Questions from the committee? Okay, Councilor Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just, this obviously has one of the largest jumps or the biggest amount of dollars in our budget here, at 14 million. And so what is the difference from 2023 to 2024? What are the major differences for that big jump?
We budgeted for an 8% increase for insurance renewals. It's a challenging insurance market right now. There's been hard markets both in personal and in commercial, which has been more pronounced than in the past. So we're budgeting for that. We're out for insurance appraisals right now to see what insurance we'll get, and we're not sure what that cost will be.
So what does the 8% translate into dollars? You have a
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, the main impact would be a $1.23 million in general liability third-party admin costs, which is how those premiums are paid. And also based on trends, about a $1.1 million increase in general liability claims paid.
Thank you. That seems to be almost like a trend just overall. And are there things that we can do from our perspective to minimize that somewhat?
So the purpose of the Office of Safety and Risk being together is so that safety can look at the claims that are coming in and working to find ways to mitigate them. So we work with city employees to find solutions and ways to just be proactive.
Are we being successful with that?
just concluded some assessments with our division to have the highest claims amount, and I think it was successful, and I think we're on the road to hopefully reduce some of these claims.
And we have a plan.
Counselor City Manager Blair wanted to add to that.
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, great question. Part of what, in a recent meeting I had with Miguel Vigil, who runs our safety office, is that we're looking at trying to find the departments that have the highest number of claims, both by the volume, but also the dollar amounts, and working to put forward a plan in the next fiscal year that mandates additional training for all employees, safety, things that we can do within the community to make sure that residents are safe as well. You know, some of these claims are people who trip and fall on city property. Some of them are employees who get hurt while they're working, et cetera. And so we're going to look to see if we can't build out a more robust program and really be mandating training for all employees who are, pardon me, who are exposed to higher levels of risk in the day-to-day.
Thank you. It just, again, the trend seems to be going considerably high, you know, just looking at 21 to 22, 22, 23, 24. Now proposed budget, we went from 3.7 million all the way up to 14.2. And so just a huge jump. I just hope that we are obviously taking steps to minimize this risk as much as possible. And big part of this budget. So just an asterisk and
Counselor, I think
my
you're on-
concern.
You're on the right track, sir. This is another one of those areas where there are intersecting issues that sometimes we don't see until we investigate. I know from talking to our team, one of the issues we've got is equipment that ought to have been retired, but our team, in the pursuit of finishing their work as best they can, use vehicles or other equipment that really ought to have been put down and replaced previously. So it's an interesting interplay between training of people in a lot of the areas that has to do with motorized vehicles, training the drivers and operators, but also investing in equipment that's up to date and doesn't lead to accidents that are not driver caused, but equipment caused. So I think they are very cognizant of the increase in costs and the impact it has on our budget. And I think a systems look at it that involves both training and the hardware is going to reduce that cost going forward.
Thank you. Just again, brought it out for clarification and point out the fact that we've gone up quite considerably and that we probably need to be keeping our eyes on it very closely. Big expense. No more questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. I have just one request. We got a claims report a couple years ago. I think we're required to get that. That it kind of gives us a report about what you're paying out and for what. I distinctly remember the weed whackers and how they hit windshields, and then we have to pay for them. And now every time I see a weed whacker and I'm driving, I turn down the street. But I have that it's been a couple years since we've seen that. And so I would like to get that scheduled for the Finance Committee to take a look at what we've been paying out and for what in the very near future. So if we could just put that as a to-do. I think it falls off of the questions Councilor Garcia is asking and helps give us also a window into where our issues are and better understanding of what you're doing to mitigate those claims. And it'd be great for us to see that too. So
Happy to get you.
great. We'll do a little presentation at Finance. All right. Any other questions from counselors? Is there a motion? Motion to approve. We have a motion and a second to approve this budget. If we could get a roll call, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Cassett,
Yes.
Councillor Faulkner,
Yes.
Councillor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Councillor Lindell, Chair Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for being here. All right, so I think if the committee's okay, we're gonna push through and do these two last budgets. And I don't know, Mayor, did you wanna go first? Right? Is there a motion to approve the mayor's budget? Any questions? All right, questions on the mayor's budget. Looks like there's maybe Mr. Hopkins is gonna need to come back.
I'd be happy to refer any and all questions to Mr. Hopkins.
Yeah, so we have, it looks like a 19% increase. That's because of the classic comps, or what's reflected there?
Madam Chair, I believe that would probably be the majority of the increase in the mayor's budget. This is a pretty small budget. Actually, if you look at the budget versus the mid-year budget, it's a decrease of about almost $150,000. So some of that is a result of a shift in costs because at the request of the city council last year, there was a request to separate the mayor and council into separate divisions. When that happens, charges for things like services of other city departments, insurance assessments, things of that nature shift over to council. So you will actually see, while it's not a net increase or decrease overall, you will see a shift in costs over to the city council's budget from the mayor's office budget for that reason.
Okay, and I misspoke. I'm sorry, it wasn't a 19% increase, it was a 19% decrease. So sorry about that.
Okay, record will show I did not get a raise this year.
Well, and I don't think you can give yourself a raise. I think there's a commission that.
I think you all just, I think the commission is underworked for whatever happens next.
Yeah, but but to be clear, that commission, the work of that commission does not impact your salary. It's the
correct.
next mayor. So don't want any confusion.
No confusion.
Counselor Lee Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick breakdown. I mean, I appreciate the decrease in spending. However, we'll see on the city council when we have an increase, but just a quick breakdown of a couple of the top things that we're spending out of the mayor's office, please.
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, with an organization with an outfit this small, the majority of expenses will be in the form of salaries and benefits. That's amounts to approximately $444,780. There's, a little bit, a little bit about $17,000 for various supplies. But most of it, as I said, most of the remaining costs would be in assessments for not only services of other departments, but also for the general liability insurance assessments done with the information from risk, which we just covered, and a very small amount for the that is assessed to all departments to run the HR's benefits program.
Thank you. Clarification.
Other questions from the committee? Counselor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair. So the city council has a sizable increase.
We're going to get to that next.
I thought it was I thought that in the budget book, it said mayor and city council.
Well, I was doing the mayor and we're going to do us next. So just on the mayor. Any other questions?
No.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Motion is second to adopt the budget for the mayor's office. Let's do a roll call again.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Counselor Cassidy,
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner, Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell, Chair Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, now we're on to the city council budget, which does have an increase, as Counselor Lindell noted. My understanding is there is money in that line item for implementation of adding staff for counselors, and also a little bit of money for contractual services should we want to hire somebody to advise how to implement the money for hiring staff, what that would look like, how many people we would hire, what they would do, who would, how all the administrative work would be done around that. And that's what explains the addition of the jump in the percentage in the council budget. Did I describe that correctly?
Madam Chair, that's correct. We added money to do a study of $60,000 in contractual services, so you can establish what's really needed for the council. We have moved a liaison position from community engagement with the funding into the council's budget. We've also pulled budget out of the mayor's office, and it's kind of standing alone this year, and hence the confusion, I think, from Councilor Lindell. Those are the big changes, though, is that we're providing funding for multiple positions without establishing what they are, because that's completely up to your discretion. We just plug money in for your use.
So there's, so there's basically money, there's the ability to figure out what it is we need or want, and then there's actually money to do it, or at least initial
Correct.
money, depending on what it is that
We did move the one position, so there's a liaison position in there with the funding. But apart from that, there's funding for 3 other positions for you to establish.
Counselor Lindell.
So I know how time flies around here. How do we initiate and get this consultant on and get moving with this project? Because if we don't move on that, it won't happen this year. And it needs to be initiated almost immediately.
I think that's an us problem, not a staff problem. I think this is in our wheelhouse. We need to decide how we want to proceed, and we'll have to talk.
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, I would say that because you do have the liaison position, that you could hire that position to do the paperwork and some of the other things that need to be done, do the contract, those kinds of things to get it off the ground.
I thought we just said we had a $60,000
study
consulting contract.
You do. You've got both. And I think the chair is spot on. I think it's going to be up to the council members, maybe a working subcommittee or a working group that is identified as people who want to sit down, one per district or however all you would like to do it. You've got both money to get assistance if there's research or assessment to be done. And in addition, there's a position, maybe you do or maybe you don't want to move forward on that position, but I think it's going to take some kind of a working group to identify a path forward that everybody feels comfortable with.
And I don't think anybody can define that for us. I think that's an us problem. We've got to figure out how we want to move forward. So it's something I've been working on for a long time. It's something I'm interested in seeing done. I'd be interested in hearing from other counselors who would like to work on this after we approve the budget. So I think this is a conversation we're just getting started. But now we have some resources to actually work with.
I appreciate that. Certainly, you and I have talked about it for years. It's, like I said, sooner's better than later.
Other questions from the committee? Counselor Lee Garcia or Counselor Cassidy? I don't know, arm wrestle. Who wants to go?
I just have a overall comment and I just, I'm looking at the overall total general government budget and we have an increase on this budget of 22.3%. And so, while I'm not fully, I mean, I could see where having, and I know this isn't the time to hash out the details of what we're discussing here. But just want to point that out because, where many of the other budgets, we show a decrease in overall change. This specific office or this general government is up 22%. And so, I just kind of want to put it out there that if we're asking other departments to go lean and mean, and we're gonna add more to our budget, a little bit of a concern there. I know that, having extra help is always welcome. And how does that translate into efficiencies and getting our job done? And so, main comment, more than anything, and I like to be part of the details. So, putting that out there. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I would say that there are two main issues driving that increase. One, keep in mind that we're talking about a comparison between the mid-year budget and the original budget. In areas like community services, affordable housing, you will see a significant inflation from the original budget to the mid-year budget because of carry forwards for grants, capital, things of that nature, such as CDBG, such as the grants administered by community services for seniors, for youth and families. So it's a bit of a misleading comparison there because general government really does not have any expenses of that nature. The mid-year budget does not tend to change very much from the original budget. So it's kind of, it's more of an apples to apples comparison here than it is in other places where it's more apples and oranges. I would just note too that there are some factors driving a cost increase in the general government overall. The most significant of which we just covered in the risk and safety department. This is one of the hurdles that this was probably our second biggest hurdle to clear for this budget process after the class and comp. How do we pay for that $8 million? Was how do we pay for the $2.5 million increase that we're going to see in insurance costs? So, there is, as you've seen, there is a bit of an increase in the council budget for the staffing needs, but that's only a quarter of what the increase is in risk and safety. And those insurance costs are really not something we can avoid or put off. They're not nice to have, so they're must haves.
Yeah, and I guess I would just note the 22% increase is, again, across the general government department, which contains the mayor's office, the city council, the city manager, the city attorney, the internal audit, the municipal court, and risk management and safety. And there are some of that increase is also funding of class and comps in those offices as well, correct?
Correct.
So you've got that, then you've got the huge risk premium increase. So there are a number of things that account for, as you mentioned, that 22% increase. And I think, we've seen across this budget decreases in contractual services. But again, those decreases are going to fund the increase to salaries for city employees to bring us up to begin to bring us up to be market competitive so that we can actually hire people, so people are interested in working with us. And so that's the overarching, I think, message, goal, purpose, objective of this budget. Am I correct in that?
Madam Chair, you are correct. And, as far as the contractuals, yes, you will be hearing, from some folks that, they were They were a little bit disappointed that we cut their contractuals budget. We did base it on, their past usage, but these are the hard decisions that we have to make in budget. We don't like to make them, but in conjunction, of course, with the senior staff in the finance department, the mayor's office, the city manager's office, but these are the unpleasant aspects of getting the job done when we have $10 million plus addition for insurance and class and comp to this budget. There are a lot of things that we would have loved to fund that sounded great, that that the mayor said, hey, can we get some money for this? Can we get some money for that? And I hate to tell him no, but sometimes the answer was, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, if we want to get class and comp done, this is going to be a bit of a tough time for some people in some areas. That's just the way it is.
Yep. Counselor Cassett, you had a question?
It was more of a clarification just based on what was written in the budget book and what is been discussed here is, it said in the budget book, 300,000 for a study. I'm glad to hear that we're not spending $300,000 on a study for city staff, but rather that those are dollars that can actually be utilized for, funding those positions in city council budget. So I just want to make that very clear because when I read that, I went, no. But this is a very different utilization of those dollars. So I wanted to make sure the public was aware. Thank you.
Why was that written in the budget book?
Madam Chair, I think that was, we got some wires crossed. That was actually, the $300,000 was actually added to salaries to provide room to hire more people during the year. The study itself was budgeted at $60,000. I think that was just a poor choice of words.
Okay, and that Counselor Cassett's in the updated budget. All right, well, I'm glad you pointed that out. Thank you. Yeah. Other questions? All right, is there a motion to approve this budget? To approve?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve this budget. Can we get a roll call, please?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Can I confirm the second? Great, thank you. Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner, Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell, Chair Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And I think we've done it, right? We got through everything and it's 4:25. Look at us. Thank you, everybody, for the work. We start at what time tomorrow? Noon, right?
Well,
Yeah,
Madam
so
Chair.
tomorrow we're going noon to 3 because
Yes.
of the council meeting that starts at 5.
Correct.
Thank you all for your work. Have a good evening and we are adjourned.